The new card game Chess of Destiny, which he had been waiting for 2 weeks. A few moments later, he opened his eyes and did not understand what had become of him. Even more surprised, the main character asked himself what had happened to him. At first, he met a beautiful sister who told him to go with her, that she would redeem him. He thought he would be able to reach the heights of life, thanks to the system. Who knew that the system would activate a self-destruct mode, and he became curious about what to do now. This is not that story. Others go through with their own plugins. He didn't understand how he became someone's plugin. Well, in any case, he can see that the girl is talented and smart, and she is one of the most gifted cultivators in the world. Meeting him is her destiny. He will give her a wonderful opportunity. The main character feels a sharp pain piercing his head, as if it were about to split open. It seems that he has fallen ill. At that moment, someone asks the girl what just happened. She says that they caught a young Chongzi, and for some reason, it went berserk. But now it has calmed down. He doesn't understand how he suddenly became like this. His thoughts are confused. New cards. Chess of Destiny. 2 weeks spent without rest. A thought creeps into his head. Could this be death? But soon he realizes that he has turned into something else. The main character comes to his senses, feeling a strange glow flash before his eyes. Unexpectedly, the system announces that it has detected a character of destiny and is ready for activation. The hero does not understand what is happening. A miniature figure appears before him, resembling a girl trapped in a cage. He doesn't know what to do, but decides to focus on this avatar. A card interface appears before his eyes, reminiscent of the game Chess of Destiny. Gradually, he realizes that he is inside the game. The system requires him to establish a connection with the character. Otherwise, activation will not occur, and self-destruct mode will be triggered. The hero is lost, not knowing how to fulfill this condition. Suddenly, the system announces that the character of Destiny is leaving the area of operation and starts the countdown to self-destruction. At that moment, he asks her not to leave. At this moment, the heroine hears a voice begging her not to leave. The voice belongs to the cat in the cage. The girl asks if it can really talk. He addresses her, saying that she has a unique talent for cultivation and that their meeting is not accidental. He calls it fate and promises a great future. After that, she said that if she saved his life, he would give her some kind of magical technique or heavenly treasure. The main character simply agreed. He asked her with kind eyes if she would let him go, but she said she would not. She doesn't believe his words. She suspects deception, because over the years she has encountered cunning creatures. She says that he is material intended for processing by a senior student named Lee, and that if something goes wrong, it will end badly. The hero realizes that she may be telling the truth. Nevertheless, the girl decides to help, and gives him a powerful toxic medicine that she had been keeping for herself. She apologizes. After that, the system detects that the character of Destiny is leaving the area of effect. The system registers a new item and reports that a connection has been established. At this moment, the girl loses faith in fate and says that it is all a lie. Then Senior Guanxi appears and asks Bufengyan how she dares. He begins to reproach the girl for not coming when Brother Lee asked her to meet him yesterday, to which she replied that this student had his own concerns. Hearing this, he hits her and says that this is nonsense, and that she is clearly disobeying orders. Guanxi said that Brother Lee is the chief disciple of the inner sect. He wanted to meet her. It was her chance, and others can't even dream of it. After that, she asked maliciously what other chance there was, other than to be his bodyguard. The man touched the girl's cheek and said why she shouldn't just listen to Brother Lee. At least she would have a good time. She pushed his hand away and said that even though she was an outer disciple, she still had her dignity, and asked him to behave properly. Biu Yang knew she couldn't compete with him. She gave the poison she was going to use to kill herself to a small animal. The manager attacked again. When she was on the verge of despair, a voice rang out. Step forward 3. Break the stance. Dodge. Advance. Horizontal strike. Following the instructions of the unknown voice, Bu Yang was able to subdue the manager. Sensing something strange, the manager lost his hostility and left. Bu Yang sincerely asked which senior had helped her and if he could show himself. At that moment, the main character, who was still nearby, appeared before her. Bu Yang, seeing him in a state similar to a soul, hastily asked how this was possible. The main character replied that he had drunk the poison she had given him. Bu Yang was stunned. To calm her down, he explained that it was his secret technique. In fact, it was a skill granted by the system, immunity to all poisons. After consuming the poison, it activated and allowed him to neutralize the poisoned food. Seeing that the main character was fine, Bu Yang wiped away her tears and opened the locked cage, begging him to leave this place as soon as possible. The main character asked seriously what would happen to her. She said she had insulted Lee's older brother and that neither of them could escape. If she stayed, she would buy him time so he could hide using the system. The main character thought that with the system in his advantage, he had nothing to fear from some older brother Lee, and reassured her, telling her to just trust him. Meanwhile, Lee's older brother was boiling with rage. He expected Bu Yang to disobey his orders. The woman next to him added fuel to the fire, whispering about Bu Yang's disobedience. But the older brother Lee seemed perverse, taking special pleasure in her rebellious nature. Since she didn't want to come to him, he decided to go to her himself. In a small hut in the mountains, in Bu Yang's secret hideout, the main character lay on the bed. He thought that this girl's figure was simply too seductive. At that moment, he remembered that there were still many new tasks left in the system. Opening it, he discovered that his main task was to prevent the descent of the heavenly disaster of the underworld. The demonic invasion, the descent of the underworld, and even the appearance of the devil gods were just the tip of the iceberg compared to this disaster. He was frightened and decided that he had to find a way to survive. Bu Yang called him, saying that she had prepared water for bathing and suggested that they bathe together. She approached him with a gentle smile on her face. This pure and innocent scene was almost unbearable for the protagonist, and he almost lost his composure. He looked at Bu Yang's worried expression and couldn't help but ask what she was thinking. It turned out that she was worried about her older brother Li because her current strength was too weak. Her older brother Li was 2 full levels above her. The protagonist looked at Bu Yang's character panel and thought that with her talent, if she had a high-level cultivation technique, she could quickly improve her abilities. Unfortunately, the system had not yet given him such techniques, and he had to find another way. After bathing, the main character asked Bu Yang to show him what she had learned. The only cultivation technique available to her at the moment was the yellow rank wind and tree arts. However, with his guidance, she was still able to make rapid progress. After the training, Bu Yang had indeed advanced, and they were already celebrating their success when suddenly a cloud of poison entered the room. The main character quickly ordered Bu Yang to hold her breath. Li's older brother was standing at the door. He was the one who had just released the poison. Judging by Bu Yang's condition, he decided that she had already lost consciousness and was about to rush in to take advantage of her. But when he opened the door, he saw that Bu Yang had not fallen, but was standing holding a sword pointed at him. Li's older brother hastily snatched the sword from her, then drew his own blade and rushed to attack. Bu Yang instinctively raised her sword, blocking the blow with a horizontal parry, then used the rising crescent technique. She aimed precisely at Li's older brother's joints. This was the first time Bi Fan had used her sword skills. Li's older brother slashed with his blade, cutting through Bi Fan's veil and exposing the lower part of her face. Bu Yang was instantly affected. He looked at Bi Fan's attribute panel, poisoned by the poison of the underworld. If the antidote is not administered, the character will lose consciousness in a few seconds, and her blood will boil and explode in a few seconds. The girl was poisoned, and the lecherous older brother Li mercilessly continued his attack. How to break this situation? Seeing Bi Fan in a weakened state, Li's older brother intensified his attack, unleashing a fiery palm strike towards Bu Yang. Even using all her strength, Bu Yang could only barely block it, followed by a quick kick. Bu Yang was forced to retreat, her body burning with poison. Seeing that Bu Yang was about to collapse, I desperately searched for a solution. Brother Li looked at Bu Yang with a lustful expression and said that if she didn't obey, it would be worse for her. Then he struck with his saber, causing the ground to shake. The protagonist collapsed, bleeding profusely. Seeing that Brother Li had raised his saber for the final blow, she temporarily used her body to block the blow with force, injuring herself. Seeing that Bu Yang was still trying to resist, but that the depraved older brother Li had become even more excited, he said that since she still wanted to resist, it was even more interesting than if she had simply obeyed. He struggled to his feet, quickly calmed her down, and told her to listen carefully. Take a step to the side and down. At that moment, as if possessed by a cheat, Bu Yang dodged the impending attack. Another rising crescent interrupted the opponent's movement. In fact, it was his innate ability as a cheat. He could sense the slightest changes in advance and react quickly. Seeing that he couldn't even defeat an ordinary outer disciple, Li's older brother flew into a rage. Dodge, then retreat. Following his instructions, Bu Yang completely avoided the attacks and even went on the offensive. Li's older brother unleashed a powerful technique, the mountain-splitting saber, aimed directly at her. Bu Yang met force with force. Just as the poison in her body was about to explode, she unleashed her strongest technique. The return of Mortal Sin Crescent Moon struck Li right in the chest. Blood spurted everywhere. The depraved elder brother Li was pinned to the ground and killed instantly. As soon as Li's older brother died, the sex alarm bell rang. Bu Yang immediately told the main character that they needed to leave quickly. It turned out that each inner disciple had a life lamp. After death, the lamp went out. The life lamps also contained a tracking formation that roughly showed the location of the owner. Bu Yang said she was afraid they would be found soon. At that moment, a dark shadow flashed in the distance. Elder Fan had arrived. Fan Bo Ha, Master Li's senior brother, appeared in front of the hut. He asked where the murderers were. By this time, they had already left the sect, leaving only the body of elder brother Li pinned to the floor. Seeing the pitiful state of his disciple, Fan instantly flew into a rage. With a roar, the hut in front of him was reduced to rubble. He ordered everyone to disperse and search. One disciple came with a report that senior brother Li had come to the sect today specifically to discipline an external disciple. He couldn't believe that an external disciple could defeat him. Fan Bo Ha suspected that Bu Yang must have conspired with outsiders to harm his disciple. He immediately ordered all the disciples of the Divine Combat sect to pursue the killer and leave no one alive. He even offered spirit stones and treasures to encourage participation. With such a large reward, countless disciples joined the search. In the forest at the foot of the mountain, a group of disciples searched for Bu Yang. Some thought she had already escaped. Suddenly, when one disciple pushed aside some glowing moss, he discovered Bu Yang. She was actually hiding nearby. Instantly, the group rushed forward for the reward. Bu Yang raised her sword and looked at the group of inner disciples preparing for battle. The battle began. Under his guidance, Bu Yang easily dealt with the so-called inner disciples. As the system, the protagonist knew that this was the effect of the new function. All the techniques and methods Bu Yang had learned were displayed here, so I could directly use any cultivation techniques she had taught me. I could even optimize and improve them, deriving the most effective combat strategies. Bu Yang, a character with the luck of a protagonist, made a breakthrough in cultivation immediately after the battle ended. I was sharing my combat experience with Bu Yang when we were interrupted by footsteps. An elder appeared before us. Bu Yang recognized him as Elder Lin, the senior internal elder responsible for supervising the training of disciples. He himself was quite strong. Moreover, he was very close to Elder Fan, the master of Li's older brother. Elder Lin drew his weapon, his expression completely changing. Without saying a word, he swung his sword. He said that he had heard about a promising talent among the outer disciples, and thought that she would be outstanding, but it turned out that she was nothing special. At that moment, a deep wound appeared on Bi-Fan's left arm. Bi-Fan consoled herself that she had simply been momentarily distracted and had performed poorly. Her recent breakthrough in cultivation made her particularly vulnerable. She had no desire to die here. Watching the elder standing in front of her, I realized that her efforts alone were not enough now. However, with talent, the system always intervenes at the right time. Meanwhile, the inner sect had already reported to Elder Funu about the clash between Elder Lin and Bai Yang in the forest at the foot of the mountain. The battle continued, and Bai Yang, possessing only basic techniques, was fighting off her opponent's fierce attacks with her last ounce of strength. After a series of fierce exchanges, Elder Lin noticed that her cultivation level had recently risen, and only someone with exceptional talent and a strong character could make such a breakthrough right in the middle of a battle. At the same time, he grew suspicious of a possible conspiracy with outsiders and deliberate harm to the Divine Combat sect. Bai Yang tried to explain that she was only defending herself, but the elder refused to listen and only intensified his attack. Gradually, it became clear that there was a hidden meaning to what was happening. Despite his outward severity, Elder Lin did not try to deliver a fatal blow. He even used the internal technique of 1,000 hearts, forcing Bai Yang to retreat and seemingly lose the will to resist. Upon closer observation, it became apparent that his movements were instructional in nature, presenting her with a rare opportunity to comprehend the techniques of the internal sect. Bai Yang quickly regained her clarity of thought, and her rapid return to combat focus only confirmed the elder's true purpose. At that moment, the system activated a special test aimed at accelerating the student's development. Despite his strictness, Lin bore no ill will toward her and deliberately passed on his skills. After several exchanges of blows, Bai Yang grasped the structure of his movements and managed to repeat the technique he had just demonstrated. The elder was surprised. Only someone with rare insight and exceptional talent could master the technique in such a short time and under such intense pressure. From that moment on, her real growth began. The system rewarded her for her success. Bai Yang fully mastered the 1,000 Hearts technique and gained a special skill that clears the mind of unnecessary distractions. Soon, Elder Feng arrived, dissatisfied with Lin wasting his energy on a student from an external sect. Almost simultaneously, the sect leader appeared and ordered the fight to stop. A tense confrontation arose between the elders. Feng insisted that Bai Yang was guilty of his disciple's death and demanded immediate punishment. The leader, however, pointed to many ambiguities that required investigation and considered premature conclusions unacceptable. Neither side was willing to back down, and the situation was rapidly escalating. At the height of the tension, there was a sudden explosion. The system intervened, interrupting the growing conflict and preventing the situation from escalating further. Streams of spiritual energy began to condense, and the creature took on human form. This was the main character's unique ability, sustained by the expenditure of spiritual power. The appearance of the talking dragon shocked Feng Bo, who was stunned by what was happening, and could not believe that standing before him was someone who dared to behave so insolently toward the elders of the sect. Feng Bohe, unable to contain his rage, rushed forward and attacked. However, his opponent easily picked up the sword lying on the ground and parried the blow. With a single swing of the 1,000 Hearts technique, he threw the surrounding disciples aside. What they saw provoked ridicule. It became clear that the modern heirs of Fan Yu had reduced the once great techniques to a shameful level, and in their hands, the great divine martial sect could soon fall into decline. The sect's disciples were speechless with shock. The situation was interrupted by the voice of the sect leader. He gave his name as Fan Jing and introduced himself as a descendant of Fan Yu. His behavior betrayed caution. The leader believed that he was dealing with a being incomparably superior to anyone else present. He suspected that Elder Feng had brought someone with a mysterious and powerful background into the sect. The main character was invited into the inner circle of the sect, a territory where external disciples almost never went. For Bai Yang, this came as a real shock. The status of the being accompanying her was so high that even the sect leader seated her next to him. The inner disciples looked at him with a mixture of envy and discontent. When the leader mentioned his origins, it became clear that he only shared the same surname as the sect's founder, but was not his direct descendant. He addressed the stranger with respect, seeking to understand the purpose of his visit. According to the memories of the previous body bearer, The system was too weak and was once captured by the Divine Combat Sect, but the real reason for his appearance in these lands could not be revealed. Therefore, it was only stated that the stranger had encountered problems in cultivation and had come here in search of a suitable place to recover, since the sect had been founded by a man who possessed similar techniques. Hearing this explanation, Feng Boha instantly softened and repentantly admitted his mistake, shifting all responsibility to the deceased Li Heng, who allegedly provoked the conflict by not recognizing the stranger's true status. He now feared the creature standing before him to the point of trembling. The stranger showed generosity, announcing that he had already taught Li Heng a lesson and that this episode could be considered closed. The cult leader noticed that Bai Yang was standing next to the unusual guest and concluded that she was tall. He emphasized that her rapid success was due to her exceptional talent. After that, the leader officially invited the guest to stay in the sect to regain his strength. The guest agreed, but soon, due to a lack of spiritual energy, the dragon's form dissipated, and he returned to his true form. The leader immediately ordered his disciples to prepare everything necessary for him. Later, one of the disciples reported to the sect leader that the room was ready. When he left, the leader thanked Elder Lin for managing to buy time and create conditions to keep the powerful guest inside the sect, which could be of great benefit in the future. Elder Lin soon appeared in the same room. It turned out that he and the leader were working together to strengthen the sect's position. The leader instructed him to keep an eye on Feng Boha, who could make new mistakes. However, the elder did not have time to carry out the assignment. A student's cry rang out from outside, and he was about to leave when the door suddenly burst open. An unknown silhouette burst into the room, its appearance accompanied by a hollow echo and a heavy, threatening voice that sounded even before the figure had fully entered. It seemed that someone had arrived whom no one here expected to see. Feng Boha stood in the doorway, full of rage and despair, when a new figure appeared next to him. The spatial interface flickered, and a demon appeared behind the traitor. Against the backdrop of what was happening, it became clear that the main character of the game world had turned into an entity capable of destroying enemies as easily as cutting fragile branches. After 2 days in a strange world, he was finally able to allow himself to sleep peacefully. However, the peace did not last long. A rift opened in the wall next to him, and a bloodied demon with a twisted blade burst into the room. Judging by the marks, it was an elite representative of its kind. Bai Yang, hearing the noise, rushed to help. But after a few exchanges of blows, she was quickly pushed back. Each subsequent step became more and more difficult for her. The demon, confident in his superiority, decided that this weak sect did not deserve to exist and intended to destroy every last one of them. But at that moment, the dragon, who had taken human form again, entered the fight to protect Bai Yang. The elite early-level demon seemed like a negligible obstacle. The Thousand Hearts technique, which the dragon had mastered, almost nullified the enemy's threat. The demon attempted to deliver a crushing blow with the Ghost Blade Wind technique, a technique capable of killing or seriously injuring anyone who came under its direct attack. However, its weakness was obvious. The direction of the strike could not be changed. While the demon was preparing the technique, the dragon instantly cut him down with one precise blow. The elite died on the spot. Meanwhile, in other parts of the sect, the demonic invasion continued. New victims appeared. One of the disciples, trembling and pale, tried to hold back the approaching demon, but was practically doomed. The demon had already jumped, preparing to deliver a fatal blow, when it was suddenly cut to pieces. A group of disciples intervened in time and saved their comrade. The situation at the sect leader's residence was much worse. Elder Feng Bocha once again openly opposed the leader, mocking his weakness and inability to lead the sect to prosperity. The leader, acknowledging his own shortcomings, nevertheless remained steadfast and reminded everyone that the sect must not be betrayed. Previous leaders had died at the hands of demons, and the current one had no intention of giving in to despair. However, his steadfastness did not save him. The demon's blade pierced the leader's chest from behind. The leader fell. Elder Lin, overcome with rage, tried to attack the killer, but was thrown back with a single blow. He realized that he could not defeat this enemy alone. Then the dragon, still in control of the situation, began to guide Elder Lin, forcing him to change his tactics. Under the guidance of the Thousand Hearts technique, its full power was revealed. As a result, the Elder inflicted several critical wounds on the enemy, and Bai Yang ended the battle by killing the demon with a precise strike. Thus ended the long night. However, the victory came at too high a price. The Divine Combat Sect was in ruins. Later, Bai Yang stood at the door, hesitating to enter, but she gathered her courage. After the death of the former leader, Elder Lin proposed appointing her as the new head of the sect. This decision simultaneously gave the system new functionality and opened up an unprecedented path for Bai Yang. Despite the fact that she had shown incredible talent and avenged the leader's death, Bai Yang herself was well aware that the real reason for her appointment was the influence of the dragon standing next to her. The sect's situation was unstable. Disciples were leaving, frightened that the traitor Feng Bocha had managed to escape in the chaos and could now join forces with the demons. In the event of a new attack, the sect's defenses would be useless. To strengthen Bai Yang's position, the dragon decided to give her a gift. He gave her a scroll, the powerful defensive formation, Holy Beginning. Elder Lin was amazed. The formation belonged to the earthly level, surpassing even the profound rank. The only problem was the lack of materials to activate it. Elder Lin volunteered to obtain the missing components and sent his disciples to the nearest Yangxiang pavilion. 2 followers of the sect, accompanied by a dragon, entered. They were met by an arrogant formation master who, upon hearing the name of their sect, dismissively sent them to the back of the line and made it clear that he considered them too insignificant. Another scene was unfolding nearby at that moment. A brother and sister were being expelled from the pavilion. The girl attempted to improve the ancient formation, but the master ridiculed them, claiming that even experienced specialists would not dare to do such a thing. He swung his arm, preparing to strike his brother, but at that moment, the disciples of the Divine Combat sect stopped him. It was then that a notification appeared on the system panel. A fateful person had been detected. Judging by the clues, the main character had stumbled upon a genius of formations, who was to become a key figure in future events. The situation attracted the attention of those around them. People mockingly discussed the girl who dared to touch the work of the senior master, convinced that she was either mistaken or insane. Soon, the chief master of the pavilion appeared, a man of stern appearance and impressive strength of spirit. At first glance, it was difficult to imagine that such a person could be won over, but his appearance meant that the situation was about to take a new turn. His expression softened as he introduced himself in a friendly manner. He said he was a Shu formation master, and asked what had happened here. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Then he remembered his own past humiliation. He had once been an elite formation master in the main pavilion, arrogant and looking down on ordinary people. One day, a young man came to the pavilion and declared that he wanted to become an elite formation master right away. Shu Bo, who was in charge of admissions, not only refused him, but also ridiculed his arrogance. No one expected that the young man would actually prove himself capable. He changed 2 high-level formations right on the spot, astonishing everyone present. The young man gained the recognition of the pavilion's master and was directly promoted to elite master. Shu Bo was demoted and sent to this remote pavilion for insulting him. Since then, he has practiced humility and has not repeated those mistakes. He dispersed the onlookers and led them inside the pavilion to inspect the formation. The brother and sister tried to activate the formation again, but it still did not work. Formation Master Shu saw that the changes to the formation did not make logical sense. Only he saw the key. I explained the problem to the older sister and told her to voice it. It turned out that the problem was with the materials. At home, they used unpurified spiritual jade, while the spiritual jade in the Yangxing Pavilion was highly purified and clean. Because of this, the formation lacked some important components. They suggested adding various impurities to the purified spiritual jade. The formation was finally activated. The younger brother was delighted and said that his sister had finally become a formation master. But before he could finish, he lost consciousness. Someone suggested calling the elder to examine him, but another noticed that he did not seem to be ill. The main character took on human form and approached to get a better look at the boy. He asked the formation master Shu to prepare a room. Inside the room, there was a crimson mark on the boy's chest, radiating a black aura. The main character recognized this as a sign of demonic corruption, and the pattern seemed familiar. It reminded me of someone. He asked the worried sister what her brother's name was. Her answer confirmed my suspicions. This boy was Guan Lin, the first boss of the dungeon in the game. In his past life, he had been struck by a demonic artifact, and, consumed by grief over the death of a loved one, had fallen into demonic cultivation. With his high attack and agility, he was incredibly difficult to defeat, and was known as the killer of newbies. The mention of a deceased loved one. Could it have been his sister? His sister was indeed a talented formation master, but I didn't know how she died. He wondered what would happen if I brought them back. The next moment, his sister knelt before him, begging him to save her brother. In the square of the Battle Divine sect, Formation Master Shu was personally setting up a formation for the sect. Although he claimed that he had long admired the sect and wanted to visit it after inspecting the formation they had provided, Elder Lin insisted on helping as well, even without payment. For them, participating in the installation of such a high-level formation was worth more than years of cultivation. The figures that appeared behind them turned out to be the brother and sister whom the main character had brought to the sect. The sister warned Guan Lin not to stray. The boy couldn't believe that they had become part of the immortal sect, and the sister explained that his condition was only temporarily stabilized and could return in the future, which is why the main character had brought them there. Guan Lin vowed to repay the kindness someday. When the main business was settled, the main character was sure that he had made progress in completing the main task. However, the quest panel showed the same thing as before. The number of team members remained 0. Upon further inspection, it turned out that the connection with the character was inactive, and a key item was required to complete it. Guan Lin's characteristics section stated that his abilities were insufficient to join the quest team. This led to the thought that all the effort could have been in vain. At that moment, a noise in the courtyard caught his attention. The brother and sister were trying to clean up, wanting to thank him for his help. Guan Lin, wanting to express his gratitude, handed the main character a jade pendant. This item turned out to be Shu Wan's jade, a mid-level artifact that could only be found in Guan Lin's dungeon. The item received by the main character, although not of the highest class, was suitable for all areas of development. Under the right circumstances, it could have excellent characteristics. In the past, the main character had gone through the Guan Lin dungeon countless times for the same jade pendant. After receiving the pendant, its properties manifested themselves. increased attack power, and increased critical strike chance. These were the best attributes that Shaw's Jade could have. It was a real stroke of luck. An achievement for obtaining the item appeared, and with it, a reward in the form of an attribute stone. The attribute stone was a special item that could randomly add a characteristic to any mid-level artifact. If it could add critical damage, the pendant would be perfect. The desire to try it was so strong that the main character couldn't hide it, and his silence confused his brother and sister. The main character returned to his room, and soon joy overwhelmed him. Shuwan's Jade did indeed receive a critical damage rating. Even though it wasn't the maximum, it was still a huge stroke of luck. The main character came to the conclusion that the dungeon boss was a real treasure trove. Meanwhile, rumors spread throughout the area about the alleged alliance between the Divine Martial Sect and demons. A group of people set out to investigate. At the foot of the mountain, a procession of cultivators from neighboring associations was approaching the sect. The guards recognized them as colleagues from other sects, but they behaved extremely aggressively. When one of the disciples tried to greet the guests, the leader immediately attacked. The disciple was seriously injured and fell. The leader loudly announced that he intended to destroy the Divine Martial Sect for its alleged connection with demons. At this time, everyone inside the sect was focused on creating a formation. The group of uninvited guests soon discovered those present and stumbled upon a small defensive formation set up by Master Shu. They considered this an attempt to wipe them off the face of the earth. Among those inside, Buyang stepped forward, demanding an explanation. However, the guests only demanded that the sect leader come out to them. Elder Lin, who appeared, was full of concern. These forces had repeatedly used their power to attack the sect and had once again stirred up conflict. When they tried to destroy the formation and annihilate the sect, Master Shu intervened. His involvement convinced the visitors that he was also involved in an alleged alliance with demons. They demanded an explanation. Only after clarification did it become clear that the misunderstanding was caused by Feng Bo-ha, who had left the sect and joined forces with the demons to attack other sects. The others mistakenly decided that the Divine Martial Sect would suffer the same fate. The mistake was acknowledged, and Master Shu removed the formation. At that moment, a wounded disciple was brought in, who had been attacked by the same man at the foot of the mountain. It was strange that the entire sect had been attacked by just one thin silhouette. This man was still trying to stir up conflict. Buyang stepped forward, challenging him. Laughter rose around her. Those present began to say that Buyang had only gained fame thanks to Master Shu's intervention. The stranger, who called herself Jiao Yubing, commander of 10,000 warriors, spoke contemptuously of the sect. The main character remembered that this woman was the first mini-boss of the Guanglin dungeon and was destined to become a subordinate of the demons, just like Feng Bo-ha. Despite her outward righteousness, her path was already predetermined. From the expressions on their faces, it was clear that the guests were still skeptical and were just watching, waiting for the outcome. If Buyang failed to suppress the enemy, the sect would find itself in an extremely difficult situation. Kyoikubin demonstrated her cultivation level. Master Shu warned those present that although she looked young, she had lived for almost a century and had reached the 5th level of the middle stage of soul formation. Buyang responded in kind, showing her own strength, the 3rd level of the spirit refinement stage. This caused a murmur among the assembled. Such a level at such a young age amazed everyone, and the sect was called a place of true talent. Zhao Yubin contemptuously mentioned that the former leader of the sect had only reached the 4th level of the middle stage of blossoming. Her subordinates also mocked her, but Buyang reminded them that the former leader had chosen to die in battle with demons rather than abandon his sect. These words made her rivals' faces darken. Enraged, Zhao Yubin rushed to attack, and Buyang hurried to meet the blow. The basic technique, a simple yellow rank technique, surprised everyone. Their own techniques barely reached the low level of yellow rank, while the modified techniques had already reached the middle level of yellow rank. After a brief exchange of blows, Bufeng Yangyan forced her opponent to reveal a weak spot, then quickly knocked Xiao Yubin down with a kick. The surrounding cultivators were also amazed. The protagonist understood that he still needed to continue his development. He was entrusted with leaving this group of people in the care of Senior Lin. After that, the main character returned to his room and saw Guanglin cleaning the courtyard again. It was striking to see the dungeon boss cleaning the courtyard, but the scene itself looked unexpectedly warm. When the main character was still an external disciple, Guanglin seemed to notice something strange. He watched the protagonist closely and sensed a familiar aura. The senior formation master on duty at the observation post reported a gathering of demons near the mountain. Their behavior indicated that they were preparing to attack the Divine Martial Sect. Defense calculations showed that completing the formation would require at least 2 days of continuous work, which posed a serious threat, as there were representatives of different sects on the mountain who were not under unified control. The messenger of the formation master arrived exhausted after clashing with the demons, but managed to deliver the necessary information. At the same time, it became known that the Yang Shui Pavilion token had been completed, which opened up access to a technique that allowed for quick analysis of the principles of any formation. This made it possible to identify weaknesses in the defensive structure and propose an optimization to divide the formation into separate segments and distribute them among the cultivators according to their level of training. This approach significantly accelerated the process and increased the stability of the result. Representatives of other sects who observed the demonstration of knowledge decided to join the divine martial sect, considering such skills to be proof of the high qualifications of its elders. After that, the main group focused on completing the defense, preparing for a possible attack. At the same time, another cultivator engaged in battle with the demons and inflicted heavy damage on one of them, which was accompanied by a loud echo throughout the forest. In a neighboring part of the province, a group of scouts from the Moonstar sect continued to search for traces of demonic activity. The province of Lune of the Seven States was characterized by a low level of spiritual energy and was considered unsuitable for cultivation, as noted by the reconnaissance participants. During their observations, a large cluster of demons was discovered. A horde of about 200 to 300 creatures moved toward the divine martial sect, posing a threat that the small local sects were unable to cope with. Scouts from the Moonstar sect continued to monitor the demons' movements. The scale of the mobilization was puzzling. Usually such detachments could only handle a few dozen opponents, so such a significant concentration of forces seemed suspicious. The question arose, what exactly was the demons' plan, and why did they need such a large group? The horde continued to advance, and soon a small sect was discovered ahead, which became the obvious target of the demonic army's advance. After that, the disciples of the Moonstar sect immediately began to approach the demons, intending to observe the development of the situation. Among them, there were continued dissatisfied comments about the remoteness of the region where this sect was located. It was believed that such a province would never have attracted the attention of the sect alliance if it weren't for one of the disciples' personal hatred of demons. Only this circumstance forced the group to intervene and try to help. Meanwhile, the demons reached the borders of the sect and activated their defensive formation. A huge explosion thundered over the mountain when the shield came into effect. 3 disciples of the Moonstar sect, who were preparing to provide support, stopped in amazement. Their attention was drawn to the formation itself. Against the backdrop of seething spiritual energy, one of the observers was struck by the fact that the defensive technology used by the small sect was on par with that of the Earth rank. This put it on par with the defensive structures of larger and more developed organizations. For a provincial sect, this was almost impossible. Confusion arose among the disciples. According to available information, the divine martial sect did not possess the knowledge or resources to create defensive barriers of this level. The existence of such a structure disrupted the entire familiar picture of forces and hierarchies. The surprise was compounded by the fact that the Moonstar sect, considered only a third-rate organization, possessed defenses of the same level as the insignificant sect of this province. This contradiction raised many questions that remained unanswered. There was a stir within the demonic army. One of the leaders of the detachment drew attention to the significant losses suffered by his unit after encountering unexpectedly powerful defenses. He blamed his subordinate, who had promised an easy victory in advance and had not bothered to conduct reconnaissance. At that moment, he received a new message. The disciples of the divine martial sect had launched a counterattack. Through the scattered smoke, the figures of cultivators rushing into battle began to appear. Bayan and his accompanying disciples were in the front ranks. The battle unfolded with fierce intensity. Transformation techniques required a great deal of spiritual energy, so their use was extremely inconvenient in prolonged clashes. However, the situation was complicated by the fact that the sect was sheltering the leaders of other small sects, and many of them could be used by demons as human shields. During the battle, the leader of the demonic squad made a swift dash forward, intending to break through the line of defense. His advance was stopped by the sudden appearance of a dragon form, accompanied by a bright burst of spiritual energy. A rapid exchange of blows began between the transformed cultivator and the demon commander. With a single movement, the demon's attack was completely blocked, and the subsequent critical strike destroyed him instantly, leaving no opportunity for a counterattack. The Moonstar sect disciples watching the battle were amazed by the level of power displayed in this clash. The victory in the battle with the commander broke the demon's fighting spirit and became a turning point in the battle. The demons began to retreat, and the combined forces of the sects managed to finish off the remaining enemies. After the battle ended, there was a sudden change in the atmosphere. A wave of powerful spiritual aura spread around the victorious side. Some cultivators noted that the power they felt was unlike the usual manifestation of energy. According to their observations, the influence of this aura resembled the effect produced by the use of exceptional skills that were inaccessible to ordinary cultivation methods. The attention of those present was drawn to the sword, which was the source of this aura. Under the influence of the released power, the weapon could not withstand it and split in two. This unexpected effect caused excitement among the sect's defenders, as it was perceived as a sign of superiority over the demons and a guarantee of ultimate victory. The realization that even weapons could not withstand the power acting on the side of the defenders significantly strengthened their morale. While the sect was in high spirits, the demonic subordinate Von Bo was in a panic and tried to hide, cursing his boss for the wrong decisions that led to catastrophic losses. The battle continued, and the demon's sudden attempt to strike was completely neutralized. The demon, having lost the initiative, shouted insults, but his aggression had no effect. Jiang Yangyan, who had been watching the incident, assessed the situation with a grim expression, and turned her attention to Fan Bo, demanding an explanation for the appearance of the dragon form. Cornered, Fang Bo was forced to make up a story about betrayal and the murder of a disciple. blaming the divine martial sect and seeking sympathy. The disciples of the Moonstar sect did not have enough information to reach a definitive conclusion. According to their observations, Fanbo had indeed collaborated with demons, but his words could have been distorted or only partially true. In the end, they decided to compare the conflicting versions and wait for further developments to figure out what really happened. At the same time, an attempt was made to establish contact with Zhang Yangyang, but the connection was never successful. Based on tactical calculations, it was obvious that there was a dragon entity inside the protective formation, representing a force that surpassed the cultivation of all the disciples present. Zhang Yangyang concluded that there were no cultivators among the observers who could directly oppose such an entity. In this regard, the disciples were advised to exercise extreme caution, and at the slightest suspicious action, to use the artifacts issued by the Moonstar sect, fighting to the last breath. Meanwhile, the Divine Martial sect was considering the future fate of Fanbo. The elders and disciples pointed out that the former leader of the sect had died because of Fanbo's actions while fighting against the demonic invasion. This turned what had happened into a blood debt that needed to be repaid. Representatives of other sects in the vicinity also expressed their desire to pay tribute to the fallen leader, which served as further confirmation of the general position. Fanbo should be held accountable. This gesture of respect solved an important diplomatic problem. The observation of representatives of other sects ensured that there would be no opportunity to distort the facts or attempt to evade responsibility. The elders of the Divine Martial sect perceived what was happening as the establishment of a new status for the sect. From that moment on, its position was no longer considered weak or vulnerable. Outside the formation, the disciples of the Moonstar sect conducted an additional check. No traces of demonic aura or signs of spells were found, confirming the voluntary nature of the actions of the cultivators who protected the Divine Martial sect. It was suggested that a senior righteous expert capable of suppressing demons was operating nearby. After all the investigations were completed, the cultivator who had participated in the battle returned to his room and opened the system's reward. A bright flash of light illuminated the room, and a tea table made entirely of a single piece of spiritual wood appeared before him. The product naturally emitted spiritual energy and had the ability to heat water for brewing tea. The leaves of the symbiotic tea tree, which were included in the set, allowed one to enhance spiritual perception when consumed. For a region experiencing a shortage of spiritual energy, such an artifact was particularly valuable. The tea table could only be activated by its owner, which made it useless to others. After preparing the tea set, a drink was brewed that had a mild, rich taste and the ability to instantly restore strength. The liquid contained easily digestible spiritual energy. However, the tea drinking process was interrupted by an unexpected knock on the door. Outside was Guan Ling, who reported that Zhang Yangyang, a disciple of the Moon Sect, Star Sect, was requesting an audience and was currently waiting in the courtyard. Upon her arrival, she noted the extraordinary saturation of spiritual energy around the residence, which greatly exceeded the level available in the Moonstar sect. In her mind, she compared the information she had heard earlier. According to the leader Bu, there was a possibility of a connection between the owner of the residence and the founder of their sect, which made what was happening even more mysterious. At that moment, Guan Ling arrived to escort Zhang Yangyang to the residence. At the same time, it became known that the allied leader had opened access to a secret dimension, which was noted as an important event. While preparing for the meeting, it was noticed that one circumstance had previously escaped attention. After the recent invasion of demons, a significant part of the buildings of the Divine Martial sect had been damaged. Despite the efforts of Elder Lin, who had arranged many rooms for guests, the conditions were far from ideal. Given that the guest was from the Moonstar sect, where the requirements for the environment and level of spiritual energy were significantly higher, there was a possibility that the current conditions would cause her dissatisfaction or lower her impression of the sect's status. Upon her arrival, Zhang Yangyang looked around the room. Her inner thoughts revealed her surprise. The room was extremely simple, which led her to believe that the host had no attachment to worldly objects or luxury. Immediately after that, the guest's attention shifted to a piece of furniture in the center of the room, and she was shocked. In front of her was a tea table made entirely from a single piece of sacred wood. In the Moonstar sect, such material was considered of the highest value and was used exclusively for the creation of high-ranking artifacts. No one dared to use it as an interior decoration, let alone in everyday life. After being shown into the room, there was a short pause. Zhang Yangyang needed time to get over her surprise and assess the situation. After a while, the guest announced the purpose of her visit. She took out a token that looked ancient and didn't give off any spiritual energy. This was precisely why the student had previously been unable to obtain explanations from the elders of her sect. None of them were able to determine the origin of the object or establish its purpose. Given the absence of energy and any kind of aura, the token was considered unremarkable, perhaps even useless. However, further examination led to an unexpected reaction. The appearance of the object resembled a familiar structure, which caused surprise. It was suggested that the token might belong to a category of rare or lost artifacts that could not be analyzed using standard methods. This heightened the intrigue of what was happening and raised new questions about the relationship between the Divine Martial sect, the Moonstar sector, and the ancient legacies left by their predecessors. As the token was examined, its true form began to gradually reveal itself. The observer's expression changed, which shocked Zhang Yangyang. Touching the object activated a hidden structure that had previously been concealed under a layer of illusion. The artifact turned out to be well known in ancient archives, the so-called Zhengman order, associated with a lost line of heritage. Zhang Yangyang explained the origin of the object. According to her records, the token had previously belonged to her mother, and was discovered within the Liangyun region of the Seven States. There were only scattered fragments of information indicating the artifact's presumed value, but none of the elders of the Moon Star sect could determine its nature. Until that moment, the token was considered an ordinary, worthless relic. However, the true purpose of the item was revealed immediately. The Zhengman order was the key to a special underground dimension, a closed, secret space whose existence was linked to the system. After the artifact was activated, the exact location of this space was determined, turning the token into a treasure of the highest order. At that moment, new news arrived. A bright flash of light appeared in the southwestern part of the sky. Elder Lin suggested that this could be the opening of a secret space, or the manifestation of a valuable artifact. Observation confirmed the connection between the event and the activation of the Zhengman order. The flash was a heavenly sign that appeared when the ancient underground world was opened. The question arose about the division of rights to explore the new space. Since the Moonstar sect was involved in the origin of the token, it was assumed that it also had a share in it. It was decided to discuss the terms of cooperation in a calm atmosphere. After that, Zhang Yangyang and Buyan were invited to the table to wait for the map to be drawn up, which would mark the exact point of entry into the underground world. Both guests raised their teacups and felt the rich spiritual energy of the drink. The taste and effect confirmed that high-level experts used artifacts in their daily lives that were inaccessible to most sects. Meanwhile, in the central square of the Divine Martial Sect, Master Formation Shu was inspecting the defensive structures with his disciples. Yan approached the square and greeted the master. Shu looked wary. He mentally noted that he had previously avoided meeting this person, assuming that he intended to demand something or interfere with his work. Soon, Master Shu remembered the rumors about Guo Feng, a young cultivator with unique abilities to work with formations. It was believed that even at a young age, he surpassed many masters of the older generation. The mention of Guo Feng was accompanied by additional information. Despite his young age, he was considered an outstanding specialist in the field of formations, highly regarded by the Yangshui Pavilion, and subsequently joined the Moonstar sect. He was predicted to have a bright future. The members of the pavilion discussed the current situation with the Divine Martial Sect's defensive formation. The question arose as to whether this structure had really been created by Master Shu. However, it soon became clear that the design belonged to a senior expert, which explained its high level of protection. This aroused suspicion. Some participants suggested that the design could have been stolen or obtained by dishonest means, since a small sect did not have the resources to develop mid-level formations. The instigator of the provocation, a student named Iguang, intended to use the situation to publicly humiliate Master Shu. His goal was to demonstrate his opponent's lack of qualifications, while maintaining the appearance of politely seeking advice. He drew an incomplete formation on the ground in advance, containing deliberately introduced errors, and invited Master Shu to analyze it. Master Shu found himself in a difficult position. The trap in the diagram was obvious, and any wrong move would lead to ridicule and a loss of authority for the entire sect. Refusal would also look like an admission of incompetence. A little later, Guan Yu quietly suggested the keyword, demonic foundation, which led Master Shu to think of a non-standard approach to the solution. Gradually, an understanding of the structure emerged. It turned out that the correct option was completely at odds with Iguana's logic, and it was necessary to apply the method mentioned earlier by the senior expert. Master Shu regained his confidence and set to work. Iguana, not receiving an immediate response, tried to finish the provocation, but was stopped at the last moment. Master Shu asked his student for the ash remains he had prepared earlier, and used them as auxiliary material. The ash contained elements of fire and earth, as well as traces of the wood element. This allowed him to balance the properties of the unstable combination, significantly reducing the cost of the construction. It turned out that the pavilion's student, Yang Shui, had a more complex solution in mind. He was going to change the arrangement of several runes and add additional elements. Observing Master Shu's technique completely changed his ideas. During the discussion, those present noticed Guan Yu, whose level of preparedness was higher than expected. This led to another burst of surprise. At the same time, Zhang Yangyan understood the true nature of the conflict. The initiator of the provocation was Iguana's attempt to make Master Shu look bad didn't work out. She apologized on behalf of her group, taking responsibility for her fellow tribesmen's behavior. Iguana tried to smooth things over by revealing his official position as the chief disciple of the Moon Star sect, but Jiang Yangyan cut him off, pointing out the irrelevance of such titles. After that, the group was invited to stay for a rest and go to the secret space with Bayan the next day. Later, in private, Iguana expressed his confusion. Why were representatives of a prestigious sect forced to show respect to a dragon and a local expert? Zhang Yangyan's answer was extremely serious. The entity known as Senior M should not be perceived as an ordinary cultivator. Any frivolous attitude towards such a figure could have unpredictable consequences. After that, Zhang Yangyan returned to her quarters and continued her cultivation, reflecting on what had happened and acknowledging the extraordinary power hidden behind the calm appearance of the senior expert. The situation in the forest surrounding the secret space continued to escalate. Representatives of the 10,000 Swords Pavilion noticed the hidden group and attempted to prevent their departure. A burst of spiritual energy blocked the path of several people, demonstrating the typical manner of strong cultivators to suppress those around them with a single movement of power. However, a disciple of the Cold Smoke Pavilion soon ran up and reported another group, 2 men and 2 women who, apparently, had the map. This news instantly caught the attention of everyone present, and the crowd headed in the indicated direction. At this time, Buyan and his companions continued their search for the entrance to the secret world, checking the map they had received earlier. Several observers were hiding in the forest, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Among them was a daring cultivator who tried to block Buyan's group's path, but was instantly suppressed. The threat disappeared so quickly that the remaining observers chose not to take any further action. Shortly after a brief exchange of information, Buyan and his group realized that they were being watched by a significant number of outsiders. To avoid further conflict, their official affiliations were revealed: the Moon Star Sect, the Divine Martial Sect, and allied structures. This immediately eased some of the tension. After that, representatives of the Alliance, who recognized Fanyan among them, joined the search party. The disciples of the Cold Smoke Pavilion also wanted to participate, but the oppressive glances of the members of the major sects forced them to retreat and keep their distance. Meanwhile, a creature with innate wings was observed in the sky, secretly monitoring the events from above. A faint glimmer of light, previously associated with the activation of the Shangman Order, was spotted. It made it clear that Buyan's group was close to their goal. And so it was. Soon, a hidden entrance to a secret space was found. The activator was placed in the appropriate recess, after which the gates shook and began to slowly open. The structure was camouflaged and dangerous. The entrance was equipped with mechanisms that reacted to approaching objects. An energy flash emanated from the depths of the portal, and at that moment, Zhang Yangyan sensed a sharp surge of danger. An instinctive warning saved those present. A bright burst of sword energy pierced the space, nearly destroying those who stood in front of the passage. It was only thanks to her recent breakthrough in cultivation that Zhang Yangyan was able to notice the attack before the others. After the situation stabilized, Buyan and the others entered the secret world. Almost immediately after their disappearance, other cultivators appeared on the territory, discussing the possible origin of the place. One assumption was that the secret space might belong to a lone swordsman. This guess was confirmed by the appearance of an older swordsman named Qing Yuanzi. He was a wandering cultivator who did not belong to any school. Despite a century of practice, his progress had long been slow, but a fateful encounter with a pair of legendary, bottomless swords dramatically changed his path, making him a figure of respect and fear. The disciples of the Cold Smoke Pavilion remembered that they had previously invited him to become an elder, but he had refused. Now it became clear that it was this secret world that had attracted his interest. Qing Yuanzi made no secret of his intentions and joined the group, approaching the entrance. Like the others before him, he encountered the same defense mechanism, a sudden sword strike that crashed into the entrance. The swordsman easily parried the attack with a light movement of his blades, after which the barrier opened, confirming his skill. Inside the secret space, Buyan and his team were exposed to dense streams of sword energy. The stone statues, which served as sources of directed sword intent, created conditions comparable to training under the guidance of a swordmaster. Cultivators of the appropriate level used this as a means of improvement. However, 3 of the group did not have sufficient stability and could only watch from the sidelines. After a while, the senior swordsman entered with the disciples of the Cold Smoke Pavilion. At the sight of the stone figures and the concentration of sword energy, they felt a sense of awe. At that moment, the statues came to life and attacked Buyan. Thanks to his quick reaction, he managed to dodge, but another statue directed a blow at Zhang Yangyang. Only the intervention of a prearranged ally saved her from serious injury. Inside the secret space, the situation was rapidly escalating. The stone statues filled with sword energy continued to attack the arriving cultivators. Those who accompanied Buyan tried to shield him from the threat, although their own strength clearly did not match the level of danger. They acted more out of desperation and misjudged bravery than actual combat training. At this time, representatives of the sects clashed with Zhang, followed by taunts and attempts to provoke conflict. Unexpectedly, one of the cultivators, dressed in simple secular clothing, snatched a sword from his comrade's hands and dealt a fatal blow to one of the disciples. This action did not belong to the perpetrator himself. His movement was imbued with an alien force that seemed to manipulate his body. 2 other cultivators experienced the same effect. Their swords spun out of control and pierced the disciples of both sects in succession. Only then did the elderly swordsman notice a vague outline of a figure behind the performer, a sign of the intervention of an unknown force. Realizing the threat, he tried to leave the scene. The remaining disciples rushed to Luanyu in panic, hoping to receive protection, but he, realizing that his opponents had the support of a more powerful being, immediately fled, leaving them to their fate. As he approached the exit from the secret world, a figure appeared silently and suddenly, blocking his path. Luan, who had a bad reputation, had suffered humiliation and bullying in the past because of his weak cultivation. Only unexpected luck in adulthood led to him gaining power, but this did not change his character. On the contrary, he became cruel and vengeful, hunting the weak and killing for profit. Mistakenly assuming that he was only facing a defender of young disciples, Luo tried to strike with a magical tool. But before the technique was completed, Luoan's body was pinned to the wall by a burst of sword energy. The observer's improvement in overall cultivation over the past few days, which had occurred under the influence of spiritual tea, had significantly increased his combat potential, making such actions extremely easy. In desperation, Luoan tried to use the child who had suddenly appeared nearby. He grabbed the boy and pressed the blade to his neck, trying to create a threat that would stop his pursuer. However, it suddenly became clear that the sword in Luoan's hands was trembling, disobeying its master. In the next second, a new burst of sword energy pierced the criminal's chest, inflicting a serious wound. The boy's abilities also turned out to be non-trivial. The child's body possessed the characteristics of a natural sword body, which influenced the behavior of swords and energy flows around him. This explained why even legendary swords reacted to his presence. Nearby was an attribute panel indicating the boy's potential, which made the prospect of his training extremely attractive. At the same time, Iguana finished suppressing the remaining sect disciples and headed towards Buyan. The group advanced deeper into the secret space, passing through level after level. The closer they got to the center, the more difficult it became to move. The resistance of the space grew, and the density of the sword energy intensified. After overcoming 2 barriers, the travelers reached the heart of the secret world. In the center stood a stone monument, on top of which stood the figure of an unknown man. This man was the first to break the silence, announcing the violation of the boundaries of the secret space. While the group members were trying to determine whether he was the guardian of this world, the stranger suddenly rushed towards them, and his attack was accompanied by a powerful concentration of yuan energy. In the center of the secret space, sword energy suddenly appeared, as if materialized out of thin air, and rushed towards the group of cultivators. Jiang Jian reacted first and managed to block the blow, but Buyan was still nearly injured. The energy flow continued its movement and with a powerful sound threw Shayna several meters away, sending her crashing to the ground. The difference in power levels became immediately apparent. The opponent's technique was outwardly the same as that used in previous tests, but its power was many times greater. This indicated a qualitatively different level of mastery of sword energy. The participants in the test noticed that the stranger had unwittingly revealed his knowledge of the senior expert, whose methods they had encountered before. His attempt to hide his slip of the tongue did not inspire confidence. Those present understood that the source of his power was clearly connected to a higher-ranking figure. At this time, far from the secret world, calm reigned within the Shengnu sect. The main mission of the system was 3/4 complete, and this was accompanied by a feeling of favorable progress. Juinzhan, who had previously been seen in the secret space, attracted particular attention. According to reports, he had extremely low innate talent, but at the same time was the bearer of a rare innate sword body. In his past life, he had spent decades trying to develop his strength, but only at the end of his journey did he realize the truth of the sword Dao. Faced with a limited lifespan, he used a forbidden ice technique in an attempt to be reborn. After explaining the nature of his past, Zhu Yinzhan was surprised. The information presented about him exceeded what he knew about himself. This prompted recognition from the system. The connection between mentor and disciple was finally established, and the main mission advanced even further. The cold and bottomless sword obtained in the secret world was to be kept for personal use, while the other sword was to be placed in the treasury. However, during a visit to the treasury, an important omission was discovered. Unlike large organizations that had developed over centuries, the Shenu sect lacked fundamental resources. There were no fields of spiritual plants, spiritual beasts, mines, deposits of spirit stones, protective and accumulative formations, or stable sources of spiritual energy. For a comfortable life and effective development, such a sect required systematic modernization. Therefore, it was decided to accelerate progress by using a new feature of the system, the sect's updated hidden space. Inside it were spiritual stones necessary for future growth. The system also allowed other sects to access the secret space by purchasing entrance tickets, creating a new source of resources. Meanwhile, Bayan and his group returned to the outer territory where Yuan, known for his complex reputation, was located. He studied the spiritual stones, considering them unprotected due to the sect's weakness. However, he was soon taken to the treasury, where he saw the Shenu sect's hidden space system unfolding before him, a new feature that had just been unlocked. Meanwhile, the protective formation was activated. The eyes of the stone statues lit up, signaling that someone had invaded in search of treasure. Representatives of the Kun sect appeared, including the Grand Elder, who was considered an extremely dangerous person, and Formation Master Zhong, who arrived with Master Shu and Guan Yu. Rumors about the situation in the Shengnu sect spread quickly, attracting the attention of numerous parties. Inside the Moonstar sect, Jiang Jian provided a report on the situation of the Shengnu sect, including the demon attack. The white-haired elder was skeptical of the information, believing that the sect was facing retribution for its own mistakes. However, the sect leader made the opposite decision. He expressed his support and allowed the disciples to use the Shengnu sect's secret space to increase their power. Yuan, who accompanied the elder, was instructed to keep an eye on Jiang Jian. The elder suspected that she might have rare resources or items related to the spirit beast. This aroused Yuan's greed. After some time, Jiang Jian arrived at the Shengnu sect with gifts and an official letter. Among the offerings was a dark stone, which was immediately recognized as crystallized poison, a type of substance used by demons. This raised new questions about the nature of the threat. Meanwhile, the story of a local cultivator, previously introduced as Meng Fio, more precisely Chen Nan, was revealed. He was in a ruined temple, immersed in memories. In the past, he was an ordinary person from the century who lived in Enin and played mobile games. Fate suddenly transported him to another world, but due to his rare physical structure, the beginning of his journey proved to be extremely difficult. Chen Nan's journey through the world of cultivation was accompanied by constant persecution. The body he received after reincarnation had the special ability of a cultivation melting furnace, which attracted spiritual beasts and demons. This physical structure aroused a strong hunting instinct in monsters. Even the lowest creatures sought to attack, and powerful demons felt a special interest in such a target. At the same time, representatives of various sects also showed no mercy. Against the backdrop of the universal desire for immortality, the value of an unusual physical body was perceived as an opportunity to gain benefits or acquire power by any means. Everyone who learned of the existence of such a body saw it as a potential source of personal advancement. Chen Yang came to the main character to visit the elder. She placed 2 chests on the table. The protagonist asked what they were. She explained that they were a gift from the head of her sect, along with a letter. The main character felt awkward, and noted that the head of her sect was too kind. Chen Yang also said that she had prepared a small personal gift, and hoped that the main character would accept it. The main character was surprised to see a stone with a demonic seed inside. Chen Yang explained that it was also a relic of her mother's, and apparently the stone possessed strange powers, although she did not understand how to use them. Perhaps the main character would be able to figure it out. The main character thought about it. It seemed like he had seen this stone somewhere before. In the game, the Jin sect was sealed away because of a stone just like this one. It was said that this stone interfered with the minds of practitioners and gradually demonized them. However, the game did not mention the origin of the stone or the existence of Chen Yang herself. The suspicion arose that Chen Yang could have been demonized by the stone and then secretly killed by her own sect. The system suddenly notified that an object for establishing communication had been detected and asked if the main character wanted to connect to it. This surprised the main character. It turned out that their future fate was hidden in this crystal. The system window said that the future was changing without the protagonist's knowledge and that a first-level character could free themselves from a tragic fate with just words. Now it was possible to exchange thoughts instantly. The demonic seed processing function was also activated. The seed obtained could be converted into quest points. The main character and Chen Yang sat silently opposite each other for a while. Then the main character said that if she needed help, she could turn to him. She could also take the chests with crystals and use them herself. Chen Yang thanked him for his kindness and said goodbye. After a while, the main character closed the door to the room and laughed, noticing that the connection with Chen Yang had been successfully established. A message appeared in the system window stating that the main quest was epic, to prevent the apocalypse. The brief description said that demons were secretly plotting something, and that the main character needed to create his own team of 4 people to stop the demonic plan. New features appeared, a quest exchange system. The main character had to use quest points to exchange them for corresponding treasure chests. Opening 1 chest cost 100 points. To open 10 chests, 10,000 points were required. The main character noted that the rewards from the chests were given out randomly. The demonic seed in the crystal had just been converted into 2,000 quest points. According to the rules of the game, the main character had to give up the right to open the chests to the players, but he wanted to do it himself. He laughed and decided to open 10 chests in a row. The icons of the items he received appeared before him: 500 low-level spirit stones, 3 low-level medicinal herbs, 1 medium-level medicinal herb, and a high-level wave energy book. The main character was happy to receive a high-level skill book, and recognized that, as a respected elder, he needed to have a unique technique. He opened the book and found the title on the first page: The Law of Divine Agriculture, the Life Skill of Cultivation. The main character was shocked that it was about agriculture. He pointed out that the concentration of spiritual energy here was too low to grow anything worthwhile. In irritation, he threw the book away, noting that it had ruined his mood. The remaining task points were not enough to open the next 10 chests. Guanlin entered the room, and the main character said he wanted to see him. Guanglin agreed and saw the elder sitting on the bed. The main character turned to him and pointed out that the demonic seed belonged to Guanlin, and he had to give it back. These words greatly frightened Guanlin. After a while, he took off his shirt and found that the seed had indeed disappeared. The main character assured him that the promise had been fulfilled. Guanlin bowed and thanked him for his great kindness. The main character rose into the air and noted that another 2,000 points had been earned. But that was still not enough. He needed to find a way to earn more quest points. At that moment, one of the disciples informed Iguana that a banquet had been ordered at a restaurant that evening and that the main character's presence was required. Master Yi agreed, noting that everything in the Shenong sect was so boring that those around him were even willing to bow down to the demonic beast. Master Yi noticed that at the foot of the demonic beast, people were bowing down to its stinking paws, and thought that the Pavilion of Forms would be much more interesting. There were many low-level spellcasters gathered there, and everyone was respectful and polite. For Zhu Bohun, this place was more than suitable. A man ran up to them and announced that something bad had happened. Aigu inquired about the cause of the commotion, and the man pointed behind him. People on the street were turning into monsters. Those around them were puzzled by what was happening. It turned out to be the work of a demonic seed. Two fugitives, whose bodies contained demonic seeds, were suddenly demonized and broke through the protective spell. The demonized man attacked the woman and child, but someone quickly dealt with both of them. Iguana held a sword in his hand and smiled at the easy victory. The people bowed and expressed their gratitude for his help. One of the demonized men began to cry as he looked at someone. The little girl, seeing this, burst into tears, calling him father. Master Y asked why so many fugitives had gathered in the city. The people explained that many villages and towns could not defend themselves against the recent demon attacks. The only safe place in the area was the Pavilion of Forms. These refugees had encountered demons, and some of them carried demonic seeds within them. The original plan was to use the formation to isolate them, but now it was clear that this was not working. Suddenly, someone threw a clump of earth that hit a girl whose father had become a demon. People began to shout that such people should be expelled, that they were too dangerous and should leave the city immediately. If this continued, serious unrest would break out in the city. Iguana smiled and said that they should not worry, and that he would help the fugitives find a suitable place for them. After a while, Zhenyan reproached him for acting too hastily. How could he bring so many people without the consent of Elder Schumann? Iguang apologized and explained that the situation was special. He also believed that the elder would certainly not remain idle, given his abilities. He deliberately told her everything after bringing the fugitives so that she would be faced with a fait accompli. If the sect refused to accept the people, it would be subject to severe condemnation. If it had accepted them, the possible demonic seeds could have caused a lot of problems. When they turned around, the fugitives were already bowing to the elder. The main character looked very tired and was breathing heavily. He asked where the demonic seeds were. Iguana smiled maliciously, assuming that the demonic beast seemed to be scared half to death. Master Yi was surprised by what he saw. Then the main character smiled and agreed to take all the demonic seeds. Later, a girl from the sect announced that everyone had to line up to register. Zhenyan, watching this, noted that, as expected of the elder, he accepted all the fugitives without any problems. Iguang added that the fugitives with demonic seeds in their bodies had been spotted by the demonic beast, and they had not yet returned. He suggested that the beast was deliberately avoiding them and was doing something behind the scenes. Zhenyan sharply stated that he should not have said that, and how dare he show disrespect to such a great man. She turned away and walked off. Iguang was annoyed that he was being scolded because of this demonic beast. A woman approached him and addressed the great immortal. She said that she and her daughter had recently been brought here by this immortal. She wanted to know where her daughter had gone. Iguana quietly replied that he had no way of knowing, and suggested she ask the demonic beast. The woman was stunned and asked again if he really said demonic beast. She was overcome with fear for her daughter's fate. Iguana waved her away and told her to leave. The woman begged the great immortal for help again, but he left, leaving her at the entrance to the sect. The woman burst into tears. Suddenly, her daughter ran up to her with a joyful expression on her face. The woman was amazed and hugged the girl tightly. She asked if everything was all right. The girl said that everything was fine and told her that the elder on the mountain had helped get rid of the demonic seed. The woman was shocked and asked again if he had really gotten rid of the demonic seed. The girl confirmed this, adding that now they were just like ordinary people. The woman fell to her knees and bowed. Later, the main character reported that there were 14 demonic seeds among the 14 fugitives. Unfortunately, they were worse than Guanglin's seed, so he only received 1,000 points for each one. But now he had enough points to open 24 chests. He opened 10 chests, and item icons appeared before him. 400 low-level spirit stones, 2 low-level medicinal herbs, 3 low-level spirit materials, and some medium-level medicinal herbs. The main character was puzzled, having received only 1 purple item, and couldn't believe such bad luck. So he opened 10 more chests. He received 6 green items, 3 blue items, and 1 purple item. The system notified him that he had achieved the Indomitable Will of Heaven achievement and opened the reward, a random book. The main character was depressed after what had happened, and noted that even the style of the illustrations in the book was different from what he was used to. He hoped that it would not be another skill for growing herbs. After opening the book, he discovered that it contained the secret technique of the heavenly bodies, a method of cultivating the immortal class. The main character was surprised because this was the first time he had come across a truly worthwhile method. Sometime later, the main character was in a room with other members of his sect. He warned them in advance that he hoped for their understanding because he had invited everyone to show them several books he had written. The first work was devoted to spiritual plants and the law of divine agriculture, which Guanlan had already begun to study. The second book contained the secret technique of the heavenly bodies and was a cultivation method that several disciples could take and familiarize themselves with. Lin Gu believed that the protagonist spoke too casually about these techniques, even though the elder's work could not have been ordinary. However, there was no suitable place for cultivation near the Shannon sect's territory, and Lin Gu was afraid that he would not be able to be of any use. After that, the protagonist turned to the elder, asking if there were any instructions. The elder admitted that his life was coming to an end, as his cultivation path had reached a dead end. He said he was ashamed of his mediocrity, and regretted that he would not be able to see the blossoming of their sect. Those present were saddened by the elder's words. The main character said that immortal-level techniques allow one to harness the power of the sun, moon, and stars, and with enough diligent training, it is possible to overcome the limits that arise. Lin Gu and Zhubo Hong were amazed by what they heard, and wondered if they were really looking at an immortal-level technique, since such methods were only found in first- and second-class sects. The main character reasoned that the system did not require independent training. As soon as the character began to use the technique, it would automatically appear in the editor. After that, it was time to discuss the search for a new order for the Immortal Union. 5 days later, the woman and her daughter entered a small, dilapidated house. A disciple of the sect said that this was the village of Squin, whose inhabitants had fled after the invasion of the demons. Now people had to live here. The girl asked if the demons could return, and she was told about the protective barrier and the constant vigilance of the disciples. Then Jiang Yang and the girl picked berries from the bushes, and Guan asked why she was staying here, since the trial was over and all the disciples were ready to return to the sect. Jiang Yang stayed, and he tried to keep her, considering it unacceptable for the head of the students to engage in simple, unclean tasks typical of mortals. Jiang Yang freed herself from his grasp and explained that for the senior protagonist, there was no difference between mortals and immortals. If the disciples of the Shannon sect could work in this way, then she had the right to do the same. Guang was angry and suspected that she had been influenced by a demonic monster. Later, Gu Yu approached Jiang Yang and asked for a favor. Jiang Yang agreed to help. Guan was surprised that a simple formation master could speak to the chief disciple in such a tone. He used spiritual energy and created a magic circle. Gu Yu felt something strange and noticed the circle under her feet. She did not understand where this spell came from. Guang felt malicious and expected the trap to work. When the circle lit up, Gu Yu moved her foot and broke the key rune, destroying the spell. Guang was shocked by what had happened. Jiang Yang asked if Gu Yu was okay. She was grateful that she had managed to destroy the rune in time and stop the spell. She said she didn't know who had set the trap and considered the situation too dangerous. Jiang Yang flew into a rage and turned to Yiguan. He was frightened when she approached him and heard her demand that he leave immediately. She intended to ask the sect to forbid him from returning to Shannon territory. Yiguan was stunned and tried to say something, but Jiang Yang did not want to listen to him and turned away. He became angry and left, confident that one day he would make her treat him with respect. But as he took a step, he discovered a magic circle beneath him. He was surprised by the origin of the spell. After that, he was struck by a powerful electric energy. The main character said that this was a simplified version of the 9 transformations of the Yuan Luo formation, and asked if Yiguang understood what was happening. Zhubo Hong said that he understood the explanation. He noted that on-site training was still necessary. When he saw Yiguan, who had been struck by lightning, he laughed, believing that he had no right to try to deceive Gu Yu. With such an elder, in his opinion, they had nothing to fear in the future. The main character asked if the tasks he had mentioned earlier had been published. Zhubo Hong confirmed this, and added that Elder Lin Gu had offered a reward to anyone who could provide a clue about the Immortal Union's order. Soon, a sect disciple brought in a girl named Zhu, who said she had a badge that might be related to their search. She held a small badge in her hands and explained that she had found it on the road, hoping to exchange it for food. The main character patted her on the head and acknowledged that the item was indeed an order from the Immortal Union. The disciple and Zhubo Hong believed that it was now clear why the elder had accepted the refugees without hesitation. It was a prescient move. A message appeared on the system screen, asking if the main character wanted to activate the Snowbone Mountain quest. He thought that he had finally received another task. Later, he would need to go there to make a copy of the dungeon. He asked the girl what reward she wanted. She replied that her mother was ill and needed medicine, and that she dreamed of finding her father's remains and burying them. Those present were shocked by her request. The main character put his hand on her shoulder and promised to fulfill her wish. He remembered that Snowbone Mountain was a place where a small demonic fox was the head of the dungeon. After completing the level, a female amulet and a secret book were given out, so this time he intended to take 3 girls with him. Lin Gu decided that the elder's room was too small and needed to be replaced. However, before leaving, the main character demanded to hear from everyone whether they had achieved any results from their practice over the past few days. Bing apologized for her slow progress and said she would try harder. The main character noted that her talent only manifested itself in the process, and mainly in battle. Xiao Jing'an admitted that he did not fully understand how to perform the technique. The main character understood that his talent manifested itself separately. He was slow in everything except fencing. Gu Yu also apologized. The main character mentally slapped himself in the face, thinking that at least they were trying. Lin Gu and Zhubo Hong felt that their own cultivation level had increased significantly and were surprised by the modesty of the young talents. They began to doubt whether they were capable of doing what even the young leader could not do. They wondered whether this was a true result or just an illusion. They were not sure whether to respond. The main character noticed their state and asked if something was bothering them. Lin Gu replied that the elder's thoughts were unfathomable, and he was still trying to understand them. Zhu Bo Hong agreed. The main character reassured them, saying that the question had been asked without any hidden meaning. Lin Gu decided he urgently needed a sip of tea. Zhu Bo Hong realized that it was their turn. After taking a sip, their bodies were filled with powerful energy. Bing noticed this and explained that it was a sign of an imminent breakthrough. The main character realized that thanks to several days of practicing the secret technique of the heavenly bodies, they were able to weaken the stagnation. The tea accelerated the process, and the breakthrough came. He believed that this method was one of the most effective for practicing high-level techniques. Zhang Yang thought that in the Shenan sect, breakthroughs were as easy as eating and drinking. She noted that Yiguan should stop his foolish actions. At that moment, Yiguan sneezed loudly. A disciple nearby asked if he was okay and if he could help with anything, and Guan replied that they should not be afraid of what he was about to say. The disciple noted that the Supreme Union was an association of cultivators, and they had nothing to fear. Later, the main character left the building, thinking that the elders had made a breakthrough and were now ready. Guanlin ran up to him, reporting an important discovery. The main character was surprised and asked what exactly had been found. Guanlin explained that if the manure of spiritual animals was mixed with soil and sprinkled with magic, it would turn into spiritual soil in 10 years. Now they just had to find the spiritual animals. He looked at the main character and remembered that demonic creatures were also a type of spiritual animal. And after spending so much time with the elder, he had almost forgotten their true form. The main character praised him and said that he should continue studying the book. After that, he left. Guanling bowed and expressed his deep gratitude for receiving the task. The main character noted that no one would have thought he was capable of scaring such a dungeon boss. He decided that spirit animals could be found on Snowy Bone Mountain. Later, in the snowy mountains, a little fox ran through the snow, holding a small piece of paper in its mouth. Behind her, an ominous magical energy appeared. The main character reflected that the snowy mountain was a harsh place filled with demonic beasts, and their group would have to use their own abilities to overcome difficulties and pass trials. They walked along a narrow path. Guanying believed that the elder was right. Zhang Yang thought that the mountain wind was so cold and strong that he had to use his whole body's cultivation to resist it. Guyu thought it was good that he had warned her in advance, and she cast several spells on her clothes. In addition, the magic array consumed energy too quickly, and she had to stop from time to recover. The main character found what was happening strange, only partially reminiscent of a game. Bu Feng'an pointed ahead and said that there was a cave ahead. The main character decided that they could go in there and rest for a while. He remembered that according to the game settings, from the moment they climbed the mountain, demonic monsters were supposed to attack intruders from time to time, but the path remained unusually calm. They entered the cave and saw two monsters standing with their backs to them. The main character noted that these creatures were also demonized. The monsters turned around and rushed at them. Bu Feng'an rushed forward with her sword. She raised her weapon, defending herself from the paw's blow. The main character marveled at the strength of these demonic beasts, and wondered what had happened to Snowbone Mountain. In the center of the cave, he noticed an ice block. He flew over there while Bu Feng'an fought. Behind the ice, the main character discovered a fox with a piece of paper in its mouth, and thought that perhaps the beast was still alive. He touched the fox's head and felt warmth, assuming that the creature could be saved. At that moment, Bu Feng'an cut off the head of one monster, then struck another on the head and won the victory. He stuck his sword into the ground, showing that the threat had been eliminated. Later, they all sat next to the fox lying on the ground. Energy began to rise around Guang Ying, enveloping her entire body. The main character realized that she had begun to break through. He believed that, as befits an exemplary protagonist, her cultivation speed was simply astonishing. The fox stirred, opened her eyes, and got up. She looked around, searching for the missing item. The main character took out a piece of paper, assuming that this was the item she was looking for. He asked the fox to tell him what had happened on Snowbone Mountain. The fox explained that General Bear, who was in the Snow Dragon Valley, had sided with the demons. He led his troops to the mountain, trying to seize the throne and take power. The young lady escaped through a secret passage, accompanied by soldiers. General Bear reported that they had left in a hurry and had not taken an important item with them. The general ordered a search of the entire mountain, believing that the fragments of bio belonged to him. The old fox said that the fragment of bio was an ancient secret of their monster clan, passed down by former masters, and under no circumstances should it fall into the hands of demons. He claimed that there were only 5 pages of the fragment, only one of which was real, and that it was here. One was given a fake page to distract the rebels, while the other, who received the real one, was supposed to deliver it to the young lady even at the cost of his own life. The main character asked if the fox wanted to continue the story, but the fox was about to descend the mountain. Voices were heard at the entrance to the cave, claiming that someone was inside. The main character realized that it would not be so easy to leave. The fox thought that he was also a beast, and that the 3 people accompanying him were powerful cultivators, and she did not understand why they were chasing the monster. The main character asked what exactly the fox was holding. Was it a fragment of bio? The fox was surprised by his knowledge. The main character noted that what they had before them was a fake. A message appeared in the system window stating that the editor had identified the fragment as fake. The old fox approached a large ice block, took out the real fragment, and uttered a spell in an unknown language. Magical energy gathered at the wall, and a secret passage opened in the mountain. The fox moved forward at a leisurely pace. Someone asked if Elder Qing really wanted to keep the greatest secret of the monster race to himself. The fox turned around, trying to figure out who it was. She noticed General Bear appearing. A powerful stream of magical energy struck the Elder King in the back, throwing him against the stone wall. General Bear watched this and noted that the inner core of the ancient monster ancestor hidden in the cave contained a power capable of granting the bloodline of the ancient monsters if it was purified according to the fragment of Bu that had been found. The Elder King, struggling to recover, tried to understand where the general had obtained such information. The general explained that, considering him treacherous, he had sent spies in advance, and now he was grateful for the open gates. At the same time, the little fox, repeating his disappointment, thought that the Elder King's lies had hurt his trust more deeply than expected. The main character watched this and concluded that the exposure had been a great shock to the fox. However, in the original game plot, it was the Elder who was the true culprit of the disasters, only without the involvement of demonized beasts. The group approached the bear guards, and one of them expressed outrage at the presence of humans. The Elder King, trembling with pain, reached out his hand, hoping for help, but the bear only considered it necessary to eliminate all who had come. The main character suggested that the bears have a little fun but not waste their strength. The girls supported this idea and, using magic, entered into battle with the demonized bears. The little fox ran up to the Elder King with tears in his eyes. The Elder King only remarked that it was too late and that urgent help was needed to get out of there. The main character rose into the air and stopped the attempt to escape, believing that from the moment the Elder began to play a double game, he no longer had the right to leave. The Elder King asked Kiani a question about the origin of the demonic beast, but before he could get an answer, an extremely powerful magical energy burst out from the depths of the cave. The Elder noted in astonishment that the bear general had probably succeeded, although the main character doubted it. The flow of energy soon began to dissipate. One of the bears sensed something approaching and said that it was coming out. The Elder King was puzzled. Bu Fengyang also could not understand what was happening. At that moment, there was a powerful explosion. A bear flew out from the depths of the cave, flew a long distance, and hit the wall. A four-legged monster ran out after it and spat out the bloodied paw of the bear general, who was screaming in pain. The creature noted the disgusting taste of the flesh. The Elder King, seeing it, recognized the ferocious beast Taiyuan. The main character explained that the so-called inner core of the ancient monster ancestor was actually sealed by Taiyuan. All previous rulers of the beasts knew that the risk of purifying the core was extremely high. The Elder King admitted that he had heard something similar, but did not believe it. The main character added that, according to the game's plot, it was he who activated the seal, not the unlucky bear, who had now become the scapegoat. The remaining bears, upon hearing of the general's death, decided to flee, considering themselves unable to resist the monster. Taiyuan blocked the path of one of the fleeing bears, and the eye on his stomach stared at its victim. The bear trembled with fear and tried to justify himself. The main character noted that before them was the final boss of the side quest on Snowy Bone Mountain. Taiyuan glanced around at those around him and became interested in a familiar smell. His attention shifted to Kiani, whom he called the child. The little fox grabbed the Elder King, suspecting him of colluding with the monster, but the latter only writhed in pain, begging not to be pushed. Taiyuan laughed and expressed his desire to eat the elder, considering his taste superior to most creatures. The main character gave the order to destroy the monster. The girls surrounded the beast. Taiyuan attacked and repelled their blows. Bu Fengyang mentally acknowledged that this enemy was stronger than Xiao Jinggang, and that the upcoming battle would be difficult. Taiyuan was surprised that the protagonist had managed to make human practitioners serve him, assuming that he had some kind of mental spell. The main character asked Kiani if there were any snow crystal pearls on the mountain. Kiani confirmed that they were still there, after which the main character ordered 3 pearls to be obtained. Wen ridiculed such audacity and declared that he would first kill the main character's team. The beast's gaze fell on Bu Fengyang and her heavy, non-magical sword. He attacked, surprised by her courage to stand in front. Bu Fengyang blocked the beast's blow using a special stance. Taiyuan was struck by the fact that the woman had created a strange aura that softened his attack. The main character noted that her heavy sword was not a magical weapon, and because of its owner, one had to masterfully control stances and kai to avoid wearing out the sword, which was beyond the reach of most practitioners. This is what developed her high reflexes and deep understanding of Ki. Taiyuan continued his attack, calling her technique a pathetic trick. However, an energy attack was approaching from one of the flanks. Jiang Yangyan used her skill, firing a multitude of energy projectiles. The main character noted that she was the strongest of the trio, but due to internal conflicts within her sect, her development was limited, and only after transferring to the Shan'an sect did her progress become rapid. Taiyuan rapidly approached Guan Yu, intending to attack her, but suddenly noticed magical energy flaring up between him and Jiang Yangyang. He was struck by the appearance of the magical pattern. The main character mentally noted that Guan Yu had started out behind, but possessed outstanding talent in weaving spells, was able to perceive the entire battlefield as a single magical array, and support her allies at the right moment. Taiyuan destroyed the array that had formed, enraged that someone dared to delay him. The main character concluded that the beast had been sealed for a long time, and no longer possessed its former power. The trio would still have to fight with all their might, but victory would eventually be possible. After some time, a rumor spread in the Shinin sect about the appearance of a new hall of trials. However, the sect seemed too remote for visitors, and some doubted the necessity of a visit. Others argued that the Xingu sect was an ally of the High Alliance, and therefore, since it had come with a report, they could not lose face. The envoys discussed their next plan. They would have to take the beast, and refusal would mean being equated with demons, after which the entire world of the righteous would turn against the Shinan sect with spells and sanctions. The envoys approached the gate. The guard asked about the purpose of the visit, after which one of the guests presented the emblem of the Supreme Alliance Embassy and announced their intention to conduct an investigation. The surprised guard immediately went to report the arrival of the guests. Soon, the envoys followed him inside. After a while, the elders Ling and Zubohan appeared before them. The envoys asked why they were being greeted by the elders and where the head of the sect was. Lingu explained that the head had gone into seclusion for training and had not yet returned. Zubohan, watching closely, sensed that the envoys had not come in peace. Without going into details, the guests suggested going inside. Soon everyone was seated. One of the envoys tasted the tea and spat it out in disgust, considering such a drink unworthy even for a small border sect. The elders exchanged glances, realizing that the guests' attitude was biased against them from the outset. The envoys reported that they had received reliable information that a demonic beast was hiding in the Shinan sect. The elders immediately denied this. Then the guests mentioned that they were talking about the elder, whose true form was the young beast Kiani. Ling emphasized that this elder was respected by all, and openly helped students and people by participating in the fight against demons. However, one of the messengers slammed his fist on the table, accusing the elders of justifying the monster and demanding the immediate surrender of the beast. Ling inquired what would happen if they refused. The answer was ominous. The sect would be declared demonized and become the enemy of all righteous people in the world. This threat shocked the elders. Another envoy reminded them that the Supreme Union united all the forces of light in the world, and the 9th rank of the Shinan sect was insignificant compared to their power. Meanwhile, Bu Fengyang, Zhang Yangyang, and Guan Yu were exhausted from the long battle. Tai Wen was also exhausted. Kiani could not understand how the 3 young practitioners were able to defeat the demonic beast. The main character noticed the body of the bear general lying nearby. At that moment, a circle of magical energy appeared around the girls. Tai Yuan was stunned, assuming that he was witnessing a demonic spell. The system window warned of a major epic quest, the goal of which was to prevent the apocalypse of the world. The second phase required the main character to investigate a demonic conspiracy. He had to gather information about the demons' plans and reveal their true intentions. Tai Yuan realized that he had been drawn into another one of these games. The main character mentally noted that the beast was unaware of its own trap. His shock intensified when he heard someone else laughing. Someone hiding in the shadows reported double luck. The plan was to lure one demonic beast out with the help of the bear general, but in the end, another one appeared. The main character saw people approaching and wondered if they were demons, since there were no such characters in the game's plot. Tai Yuan wondered what game they were talking about. The main character cleared his throat and told him not to pay attention to the details. Bu Fengyang mentally noted that she felt as if she had seen them before. He asked what she meant. She replied that she wasn't sure if it was the same person, but there had been a guy dressed the same way on the hill earlier, but he had disappeared so quickly that she thought she had imagined it. The main character asked when that had happened. Buang replied that she would think about it. It was the night before she first met him. The next morning, Elder Fan said he had caught the spirit beast, and explained that it needed to be watched closely. The main character thought that he had always wondered how this elder was able to catch Jian's child with his level of cultivation. Now it seemed that perhaps he, like the bear general, had been used by demons. The demon said that his goal was to capture 2 demonic beasts. If the other one had surrendered, he could have spared their lives. He noticed something he had seen. Gu said she could try to remove the spell. The demon asked why they were standing there and demanded that the network be shut down immediately. Tai Yuan struck the barrier and claimed that Erdu would not get away with this. Suddenly, magical energy enveloped his entire body. He said he couldn't get rid of it. Numerous magical ropes wrapped around the girls' bodies. The demon laughed and claimed that even such a ferocious beast had been caught, and asked if he really still wanted to oppose the demons. Tai Yuan thought this meant that this group of demons feared his power, so they waited until they had exhausted each other before capturing them all at once. He blamed Jian's child. He noticed a human figure in the smoke. The main character emerged from the smoke in human form, holding a sword. Tian wondered if he had really used his transformation skill. The girls were happy to see his human form. He wondered why they weren't panicking at all. The main character said that they had performed well in the trials, and he would take care of the rest. The system notified him that it was beginning to analyze the spell. He went on the offensive, announcing that the weak points had been found. He struck with his sword and destroyed the barrier around them. The demon ordered him to stop. The 2 demons were shocked by what they saw. The main character struck 2 blows and defeated these demons. The chief demon said that they were not even capable of stopping him. The main character jumped up, preparing to attack, but the demon uttered something in an unknown language. Bu Fengyang asked what exactly the demon was saying. Jiang claimed that she did not understand, probably because it was their language. Manfeiku thought that he was indeed able to understand it. Perhaps this was because he was a system. The demon spoke in his own language, saying that they could no longer tolerate this. and that he needed urgent help. He was waiting for a direct connection. Manfeku rushed forward, raising his sword. A powerful burst of energy surrounded the demon and threw him back, but he managed to land on his feet. The demon who appeared asked if this was an enemy he needed to deal with himself. He said that since he had caught 2 demonic beasts, he would spare him this time. The main character asked who he was. It sounded like some kind of summoning spell. The summoned demon said that he was one of the 9 emperors of the demon race, Liba, and that what was visible now was only part of his image. The main character asked why he was catching demonic beasts. Liba replied to the little demonic beast that he would find out later. The main character said that he would ask again later. He began to run towards the demons, holding his sword. Liba said that he was overestimating his strength. The main character pierced the hand of the demon who had summoned him, and this wound was reflected on Liba. They remained in this position for some time. Liba screamed loudly in pain and asked how he managed to hurt him. The main character said that he had not originally intended to use the first sword, but even he himself did not know that it would suddenly appear. Perhaps this caused him to misjudge his strength. Liba thought that this guy's power was strange, and that he was really able to damage his own body. The main character said that he would ask the question again. What was his goal? Liba summoned several swords floating around him and said not to get carried away. He launched these swords at high speed. The main character placed 2 fingers on the sword, and a magic circle of fire energy appeared behind him. Buang said that this was the sword technique of Master Xiao Jing'an, but with the power of the secret technique of the heavenly body included. Ta Yuan asked where they still had the strength to explain anything. Zhang said she understood everything. Gu claimed she was still far from that. Ta Yuan said that they were too friendly. Strong magical energy began to burst out of the circle. This attack greatly surprised Liba. Manfeku said that this blow could even kill him. However, the task remained unchanged. Liba replied that it was impossible and asked how he could lose to the scum of the human world. His energy turned red, and he insisted that it was absolutely impossible. The demon who summoned him was in great pain and clutched his head. The main character asked what this guy was going to do. Liba uttered a spell in his language, to create his body from someone else's flesh and blood, from someone else's soul, to open the way for him. Tiyu began to scream in pain. After this spell, his eyes began to emit a red light. Liba's body became transparent, but red energy gathered inside. Suddenly, someone's body was torn to pieces. A huge magical funnel appeared above the dome. Lib's body appeared from this funnel. The main character used a magic circle and released streams of his energy. Liba struck with his sword and cut through the streams of energy. Zhang Yang believed that the Elder's attack had been blocked. Liba said that an unprepared descent could only reach this level, and he felt at least half as weak as his true strength. Bu Fenggang asked if demons were really that powerful. The main character released his energy, which struck the enemy's face. He said they didn't need to worry because he was there. Liba wondered how he managed to hit him. The main character reflected that he was surprised that he did not die after being struck by the sword. It seemed that this guy was unable to appear directly in the human world, so the demonic beast was probably some kind of necessary means of transportation in the human world. The system window said that he had collected one of the 4 pieces of information about the demon's plans. The main character understood that he would have to analyze the information himself. The main character jumped back and began to gather energy in his sword. Zhang Yang claimed that this level of combat surpassed that of most top-class masters. Liba repeatedly said that he refused to believe what was happening. Suddenly, the barrier he had created began to crumble. Luan began to break free from this barrier. Liba thought he was too busy fighting and forgot to control the spell. He turned around and noticed a rapid stream of energy approaching him. After this attack, there was a very powerful explosion. Bufenin said that the spell was not working. Zhang Yang asked if the demon was dead. The main character said that wasn't true, it had escaped. Meanwhile, in the demonic world, Liba began coughing up blood in his real body. He asked where such a creature could exist in the human world. The main character said that the storyline had suddenly begun to change, perhaps because of his intervention, or for some other reason. Taiyuan asked what this thing was. They noticed a large demonic seed on his body. He asked what a demonic seed was. Zhang Yang claimed that it was a sign of demonic infection, capable of causing demonization. Taiyuan raised his hand and said he would not let that happen. He swung his arm to strike the spot where the demonic seed was located. The main character blocked his blow and said that he should not touch the demonic seed, that he would take care of it himself. After a while, he laughed and claimed that the reward for such a large seed was simply off the charts. Taiyuan said that he never thought that he would save him, but now he was afraid that he didn't have long to live. The girl had to approach him. Bufengang wondered if he was really talking to her. Taiyuan claimed that her sword would soon be destroyed, and he would die soon anyway, so why not give him one last gift? He concentrated his energy, used a very powerful spell, and released a huge amount of energy. After that, Bufang's sword changed, becoming similar to him. Jiang Yang said that it was amazing. The beast had turned into a sword that must have at least a heavenly rank. The main character crossed his arms and said that it was of the earthly rank. However, the sword could increase its rank by absorbing other treasures. The system window said that the sword's name was Ta Yuan. Its rank was earthly, and its ability to absorb treasures increased its own rank. Zhang Yang claimed that this was even better, and that in the future, this sword might even be able to reach the 3 highest ranks. The main character asked if it could hear him. The girls were surprised by what he said. They stood motionless, waiting for a reaction. Ta Luang asked how he could determine that. Bufungan claimed that he could not only hear, but also speak. A note appeared in the system window. Ta Yuan's true body had its own consciousness and could rebel against the user. The main character said that if he wanted to become a sword, so be it, but he had to keep his desires to himself. Ta Yuan was afraid of him and agreed. After that, the inscription in the window changed from "may rebel against the user" to "has a connection with the user's consciousness." The main character looked back and asked if the fox had run away. It seemed he would have to search for it on his own. Suddenly, he heard a voice calling him and realized it was Xiao Jing'an. He asked what had happened. The elder said that Elder Zubohu had been attacked by the Supreme Alliance. This raises doubts, because the Supreme Alliance is considered an association of righteous cultivators, yet it still attacks, accusing the elder of following the demonic path. At this time, Zubohu is in the forest and maintains a protective formation around himself, surrounded by a magical barrier. He is attacked with magic spells, which causes him great stress. The attacker believes that he has locked himself in his defense like a turtle in its shell, and that even after many attempts, the barrier cannot be broken. Another attacker claims that Zhu Bohun has gathered the ashes of a demon with the help of the formation, and is doing something suspicious. Otherwise, he would have stopped resisting long ago. Because of the siege, the attackers believe that the Shenmen sect has truly gone down the path of demons, and that they must not be allowed to carry out their plans. Zhu Bohun recalls how one of his students asked him to return her father's bones for burial. He promised the main character that since he was going to the snowy mountains, he would fulfill her request. Later, a city guard informed him that the bodies of the demonized refugees had been burned in a forest south of the city. Zhu Bohun arrived there, saw the place of burning, and tried to collect the scattered ashes with the help of a formation. He drew a magic circle, and the ash particles he needed began to rise from the ground. At that moment, he felt a magical attack directed at him, and was able to block it with his energy. The members of the Supreme Alliance accuse him of serving demons and demand that he surrender. Zhu Bohun suffers from the blow, and wonders why the representatives of the Union have come again and want to cause trouble. The old man among the attackers claims that the Shenmen sect robbed the secret kingdom and killed several of their disciples. He demands fair punishment from the Supreme Alliance. The attackers believe that the sect has been bewitched by a demonic beast, and has now become the enemy of all righteous people. If they are not destroyed today, they believe that heaven will be angry. Zhu Bohun understands that the ashes are extremely unstable, and if the spell is interrupted, they will disappear. He has already made an effort and cannot let the girl down, so he must first send a message to the sect and ask for support. The old man notices that he is trying to use the transmission stone to call for help and orders him to stop. The enemy uses a spell and strikes, causing a powerful explosion, but Zhu Bohun defends himself with a barrier formation. However, he realizes that he doesn't know how much longer he can hold out. Fortunately, the main character had previously taught him how to use two spells at the same time. He notices a crack in the barrier and realizes that the situation is becoming critical. The attacker summons the divine lightning of the 9 heavens to purify the demonic energy. The lightning strike creates new cracks. Zhu Bohun is wounded and coughs up blood, after which the barrier begins to disappear. The old man demands that the spell on the ground be destroyed as quickly as possible. The attacker strikes him with lightning. Zhu Bohun tries to hold the spell, realizing that it must not be interrupted. There is a powerful explosion of electrical energy. The attacker laughs at his self-confidence, but suddenly notices the disappearance of his companion standing nearby. The main character is nearby, holding this man. He throws him to the ground. The attacker is surprised, not understanding how he got there so quickly. Zhu Bohun is shocked by the appearance of the senior cultivator. The girls run up to them and turn to the elder. He is confident of his safety, now that the main character has arrived. Zhu Bohun notices that the cult leader has changed his sword, and it looks strange. The attacker also sees the sword and finds it ominous. The old man claims that Zhu Bohun robbed the secret kingdom and killed several of his disciples. He demands retribution on behalf of the giant insect. Jianyang believes that they were the first to find the secret kingdom, and that the attackers tried to kill them, so justice is not on their side. The enemy begins to think that the leader of the Xingu sect's disciples stood up for the demonic beast, and wonders if she was under its influence. The old man demands proof, and declares that without it, it cannot be claimed that it was his disciples who tried to kill the others, because in that case, it was his disciples who died at their hands. Jinan gets angry and prepares to respond, but the main character stops her, believing that it does not matter. He understands that no one here has come to reason sensibly. From his point of view, if justice means his life, then his opponents may try to take it. The attacker thinks that this conversation will lead them to their graves and does not know how to respond. He tells the demonic beast that it is strong, but for every mountain there is a higher mountain, and it cannot oppose all righteousness at once. The main character questions the very distinction between good and evil, believing that decisions are determined solely by a person's own choices. His opponent argues that this is impossible, because justice is determined by the eyes of others. The main character addresses his people, wanting to show them that such people consider themselves the voice of the whole world. He warns them not to follow their example, otherwise divine punishment will befall them. Everyone standing next to him agrees. He asks how the collection of ashes is going. Zhu Bohun is surprised but reports that everything is ready. The main character decides that, since that is the case, it is time for them to return. Jianyang is surprised, as she expected conflict between the Elder and the Supreme Union, and came with the intention of reconciling the parties, but did not expect the main character to remain inactive. The enemy demands to stop, not daring to say it out loud, and silently resents what is happening. Those present believe that the little demonic beast is too insolent, allowing himself to speak to them in this way. They are convinced that he will not dare to leave, and that they are capable of fighting him for 300 rounds for the sake of justice. When the main character and the others leave, the people continue to watch silently. After they leave, everyone breathes a sigh of relief. One of them asks the others if they really did not feel the pressure of the demonic beast, because it was so overwhelming that he could hardly breathe. The others are skeptical, but admit that if they hadn't been so paralyzed by fear, they wouldn't have let the situation end this way. Another man believes that this is not the case, but his companion covers his mouth and asks him to just believe. Lu Kai approaches them and asks them to call a doctor. Sometime later, at the entrance to the cave, where words about the secret kingdom of the Immortal Union in the snowy Bone Mountains are carved on a stone, the main character stands in front of this cave. He reflects that although he has discovered a new secret world and obtained a sword, he has received no other rewards, and the spirit beast has still not been found. Due to negative rumors spread by the Supreme Union, they have been declared a demonic sect. This has led to the fact that no sects, except for their closest allies, come to train anymore. In essence, their sect remains little known and insufficiently powerful, making it an easy target for suppression. Suddenly, a huge shadow appears above him. He looks up and sees a huge fish flying through the sky. The main character notices that it is apparently a demonic creature, a dead perch created by the head of the game developers as a joke. He remembers who this fish belongs to. At that moment, a human figure appears on its body, announcing the arrival of the fourth master of the Chuan Yuan Pavilion, Xuan Man, who has come to visit the shaman sect elder and everyone else. The main character notes that he has staged a loud performance, and that it is more of a demonstration of power than a visit. Zhu Bahong reports that the Chuan Yuan Pavilion became famous 30 years ago thanks to 4 pavilion masters with outstanding abilities. But because of their bullying of the weak and killing of the innocent, they were recognized as a demonic sect. In terms of power, it surpasses even the Jing sect. The white-haired man jumps a great distance and lands in front of them, surprising the guards at the entrance. Xiao Jinggang approaches him, bows, and asks the reason for his visit. Xuan Man explains that he has heard of the outstanding hermit of the Shenmen sect and wishes to meet him, expressing his respect and hoping to hear his teachings. Xiao Jinggang replies that the senior protagonist does not wish to meet him, and therefore the guest must leave. Xuan Man suggests not rushing to a decision, stating that he has brought a gift. He opens a chest containing 3 glowing tablets, which are believed to be of the heavenly rank of Kai Ora Jun. The guard is amazed, considering them incredibly valuable. Xuan Man informs him that thanks to their sect, everyone is now searching for these items, and that his sect has managed to obtain 3 of them. Xiao Jinggang remains silent, observing the contents. Xuan Man smiles, and says that these tablets are only a small token of gratitude. If the elder agrees, the Chu Yin Pavilion wishes to unite with their sect and cooperate in the future. Xiao Jinggang says that this is impossible, as the elder has made it clear that the Shenmen sect does not intend to follow the path of demonic sects. Xuan Man laughs loudly and asks if he remembers correctly. Their sect is also listed as demonic. The so-called righteous ones were not going to forgive them anyway, so it would be better to look for allies rather than enemies. The guard who witnessed the incident merely snorted. In his opinion, Xuan Man was so arrogant that he dared to threaten them. Xuan Man himself was puzzled as to who this sect thought they were. They had decided to oppose both the righteous and the demons at the same time, especially now that the demons were invading. Even a demonic beast would not be so stupid as to not understand what it needed. Manfu and Xiaoxingan talked, after which Manfu reported that the elder had recognized the dead perch as good, but was leaving it here, and ordered Xuan Man himself to be expelled. Xuan Man clapped his hands, and, with a crooked smile, remarked that this was not bad for someone who dared to go against the righteous, relying only on his own strength. However, in his opinion, this elder clearly underestimated the cultivators of this world. After all, the dead perch was a product of chaos, and the power of decay was hidden within its body. Even a heavenly ranked protective seal would not last long. Zub Bohun noticed that the demonic beast was trying to destroy the mountain defense formation. Xuan Man just smiled. They had nothing to worry about. He had many spells in the Cheyun Pavilion. If they agreed to cooperate, he would help them find something much better. Meanwhile, the dead perch floating in the air began to take a deep breath, but suddenly recoiled sharply. Something had frightened it. He saw Manfu on his head, who calmly warned him not to continue. The enraged protagonist raised his foot and slammed his mouth shut with a powerful blow, just as it began to draw in air. Manfu reminded him that he had warned him not to do this. A mark from the blow remained on the fish's head, and it grimaced in pain. Xuanman wondered why the dead perch was so slow, and Xiaoxingan even yawned and asked if it was finally going to leave. Angered, Xuanman declared that the Shenan sect had decided to insult everyone, both the righteous and the demons. After that, he ordered the dead perch to leave. Looking around, Xuanman suddenly asked where his base had gone. Guang Yin and the Guang sisters were surprised at how small the perch had become, because just a moment ago, it had been huge. The frightened perch peeked out of the pond and trembled. Xiao Xing'an bowed to the elder and noted that Xuan Man had left. Did he not even want to take the tokens he had brought? Man Fu waved his hand. Let him leave them. He said that the tokens possessed the aura of a heavenly treasure of the Kyora rank, but there was something strange about them. In the game, such tokens were simply special items without classes or ranks. So something was wrong here. As he left, Xuan Man grumbled that the people of the Shenan sect had no honor. They dared to deprive him of his dead perch. Fortunately, they forgot about the 3 tokens. Sooner or later, they would see these tokens end up in his Chuan pavilion, and then they would regret it. Xinjian asked when this pond had appeared. Ling Yu replied that he did not know for sure, but it was probably a manifestation of the elder's divine power. It may look ordinary, but it definitely hides a secret. A notification appeared in the system window about receiving the achievement, The One Who Does Good and Evil. The reward was a mysterious piece of furniture, a pond that looked like any other. The recognition skill was still not unlocked. Manfeiku thought. Since the ability had not been activated, he needed to continue attracting people of destiny. A disciple approached the elder and reported that Lady Jiang Yang was requesting an audience. She approached, and Manfu asked if she had already returned. The girl replied that, on the orders of the sect leader, she had brought several disciples to the secret area of the Snowy Bone Mountains for training. Manfeiku was surprised. After all, the Shenan sect had already been officially registered as demonic, so why was the Zinc sect still cooperating with them? Jiang Yang explained that she had come to discuss the situation of the Shenan sect. The old master assured her that there was no need to worry. He was going to appeal to the High Union to challenge the accusations. The girl was amazed by this decision. The master continued. Despite the rumors and words of outsiders, the Shenan sect had been kind to them. Thanks to the guidance of their elder, it had made tremendous progress. As for the difference between good and evil, he trusted her judgment, even though he had not yet seen this elder himself. The disciples who had been sent to the Shenan sect earlier returned much stronger. This time, she could choose a few more. It would be an expression of their relationship. Jiang Yang agreed. The master added that he wanted to convey another message to the elder. From the moment the news about the collection of Immortal Union tokens spread, tokens of unknown origin began to appear everywhere. Each of them possessed an aura of heavenly rank and became a cause for battles between sects. However, it later became clear that many of them were forged from discarded magical treasures and would turn into useless scrap metal in 10 days. It was unknown who could have had the means to afford such things. Jiang Yang explained that the investigation was ongoing, but so far there were no results. At times like this, the shortcomings of a small sect became particularly apparent. The lack of people limited even the ability to conduct the simplest investigations. Then, Jiang Yang reported on the second point. The junior disciple had brought another person with her. This man in a large hat immediately began to inspect the buildings and indignantly inquired who had been doing the repairs. In his opinion, the place looked so bad that he wanted to forget about it. However, everything was done in order to pay off debts to the Zinc sect, so all that was needed was to help them quickly build the courtyard. Jiang Yang explained that Nanggong Moen was an ordinary practitioner and a well-known master builder. Many buildings of various sects had been built under his leadership. Zhu Bohun noted that he had already heard of him. The masters considered him eccentric, unpredictable, and extremely expensive. Jiang Yang assured him that there was nothing to worry about. This time he had come mainly to build the elder's residence, and the Jinku sect had covered the expenses. Soon, a stream of spiritual energy appeared next to Manfeiku, and the elder expressed his gratitude to their sect for their friendship. Jiang Yang replied that he was too polite. Master Nanggong Moen was examining the surroundings, so they had to wait a little while. After a while, Jiang Yang and Bu Yin encountered the master walking towards them. After examining the area, Nanggong Moen declared that the land in this place was extremely inconvenient, and most importantly, there was absolutely nothing to eat here. Judging by his tone, it was already clear to him that the final cost of the work would have to be doubled. Jiang Yang just thought that food was the most important thing for this man, so coming to such a remote place clearly annoyed him. The main thing was that he didn't offend the elder. Later, Jiang Yang introduced the master to the elder. Inspecting the place, Nanggong Moen noted that the elder's residence was full of spiritual energy and was secluded, away from the other buildings of the sect. This was rare in Linyang Chiju. Manfeiku warmly invited everyone to have a snack and take a break. The mention of food instantly caught the master's attention, but if it was just simple food, his interest waned. At that moment, Guanling brought a small box. When the master opened it, he was greatly surprised by what he saw. Inside was an icy treat. The girls took one each and admired how beautiful it looked. Nanggong Moen carefully examined the white mass, mentally noting that it was transparent, smooth, and looked extremely appetizing. After tasting it, he noticed that the taste was similar to ordinary ice, but the milky and fruity notes made it much more interesting. Manfeiku explained that it was called ice cream. Thanks to the sweet water from the pond and the presence of snow-capped mountains where ice could be obtained, it was possible to prepare several different flavors for everyone to enjoy. Nanggong Moen, being a true gourmet, recalled how many sects had tried to invite him, offering spiritual fruits, the water of immortals, and other rarities. Ice cream, although curious, remained for him just a delicious but ordinary product. Taluan asked for another serving, which greatly surprised the master. The sword also ate ice cream. The elder gently remarked that it would be nice to leave some for others. Taluan agreed and assured him that he would only eat the last one. The master mentally noted that the Shannon sect was an extremely strange place. Perhaps it would be worth staying here for a couple more days to try this unusual treat again. That same evening, a strange energy appeared in the air near the sect. Someone asked loudly what was going on. Ling noted that he could feel it too. Jiang Yang said that something unusual was happening with her own cultivation level. Buyin also felt it, and together they noticed that their power had suddenly diminished. Jiang Yang suggested looking at the sky. It seemed to have changed. Bu Fenin asked in surprise if this was a bad sign. At that moment, the elder came out of her room and asked why the disciples were not practicing. When Bu Fenin explained that their cultivation levels had dropped, the elder was puzzled. She hadn't sensed anything at all. Meanwhile, Nanggong Moan was sleeping in his room, but suddenly woke up from a sharp pain in his chest. He remembered the old man's warnings. By consuming countless immortal and exotic treasures, the master had overloaded his body. Despite his high level of cultivation, his foundation remained unstable. Now, it was making itself felt. He called Dr. Sun and asked if it was life-threatening. The doctor replied that the aura in his body was mixed up, but at the same time, a fragile harmony had emerged between the forces. Now, he had to be extremely careful. However, Nanggong Moan felt that everything was spiraling out of control. His energy was rushing around inside his body, preventing him from even making a sound. A disturbing thought flashed through his mind. Could he really die in this wilderness? At that moment, a new aura began to form in his body. He felt a slight chill, which made him think that it might be because of the ice cream he had eaten during the day. The two auras that had been in his body before began to be drawn to the newly formed one. They merge, and the main character feels as if part of his own aura has disappeared. A doubt arises. Could this be related to the ice cream? Later, early in the morning, while walking around the estate, it becomes clear that almost the entire aura has disappeared, although the sea of qi inside remains cold. The assumption arises that this seemingly ordinary ice cream hides some kind of secret. The night passes in great discomfort, sleep does not come, and finally there is an opportunity to learn the truth from the elder. Before entering the house, the main character is surprised by what he sees. Several people approach the building, and Guanlin opens the door, announcing that the elder has awakened and is receiving everyone. The visitors enter and see Meng Fu sitting on a chair. Bu Fan Yan tells him about what happened last night. An unusual sign appeared in the sky, and the cultivation levels of many people suddenly decreased. The younger generation does not understand anything, so everyone has come for explanations. The young man thinks intently. If it was a heavenly illusion, could it have been caused by the chaotic flow of aura in his body? Meng Fu replies that he knows about it in general terms, which surprises those around him. He points to a stone pillar, and says that the four of them should approach different sides of it and place their palms on the swirling pattern. When they do so, magical energy flares up from the pillar, and a shining symbol appears above Bu Fan's head, the number 37. The girl is surprised, but Meng Fu explains that this is her level, and it's not bad at all. He reflects on the fact that during the night, he received a notification from the system in his dream. A new phase has begun, and new information has become available. Meng Fu then explains that the laws of heaven and earth have changed, and the old way of determining cultivation levels no longer works. Now the spiritual pillar will show the level according to the new rules, starting from level 1. Every 10th level is considered a step, and mortals are considered level 0. Jin Yong asks about the maximum level, and Meng Fu replies that there is no upper limit yet. The young man is amazed. Could the elder really control the changes of the heavenly Tao and possess such a strange treasure? It seems that Yang Yan was right. The elder's origins are much deeper than we imagined. Even yesterday's simple ice cream could turn out to be a precious artifact. It is only thanks to the elder's protection that he is standing here. He falls to one knee and expresses his gratitude for his saved life, then asks to be accepted into the Shinneman sect. Yang Yan is surprised. Master Nanggong Mo Jiang also wants to join their sect. The elder once again behaves as if he is unaware of it, winning the trust of those around him. Meng Fu laughs and approves. He still doesn't understand when exactly he saved the young man. At that moment, Yang Yan receives a mental message. She is urgently summoned back to the sect. Probably something important has happened there. She explains the situation to the elder and hurries away. Sometime later, in the Jin sect, the master announces that he has received news from the Supreme Union. The reason for the decline in cultivation levels was a change in the rules of the heavenly Tao. The elder asks why the Union is so sure of this. The master replies that on the night of the heavenly vision, the 3 leading sects experienced a miracle. A revelation appeared that explained everything. The elder is amazed. Worthy first-class sects truly receive the favor of heaven. They are shown a new miracle, a stone pillar capable of determining the levels of cultivators. The text of the revelation is strange and understandable only to those who have seen the phenomenon with their own eyes. The master believes that the heavenly Tao is deliberately forcing the 3 great sects to establish new world rules. Later, perhaps, the sects will be allowed to admit students from other schools to the test, but there will be few places, and the conditions will be difficult. The elder concludes that joining a first-class sect is in itself proof of strength, and the miracle pillar will make their influence even greater. Yang bows to his mentors and assures them that he will train hard and not allow valuable places to fall into unworthy hands. The other students also bowed, expressing their willingness to train hard and not let the valuable spots fall into the wrong hands. The elder noted that Yang was often absent from the sect, and Yun gradually became the leader of the disciples. It seems that he will soon take his rightful position for good. The mentor turned to Yan, wanting to know her opinion. The girl asked if she could ask whether the stone pillar was square, whether it had a spiral pattern, and whether text appeared when she placed her palm on it. The mentor confirmed that this was the case, and was surprised at how she knew this. It turned out that the image he had seen in the Supreme Union did indeed match this pillar. Yan reported that there was a similar stone pillar in the Shannon sect. This caused great surprise among those present. She added that Elder Meng Fu called the new level of cultivation a spiritual level, and thanks to him she was able to experience it herself. The mentor asked about the results of her test. Yun replied that he had achieved an outstanding result, and the elder called it a rarity among his peers. The mentor laughed, noting that this was to be expected from the sect's chief disciple, and the other disciples immediately became jealous. The mentor then asked if he could meet Meng Fu, and if the elder would allow it, he would like to visit the Shannon sect. After a while, the disciples were told they could sit down. Bu Fangyan also sat down. Ling felt like everything that was happening was like a dream. The head of the Jingzhu sect had come in person. Zhuba Hong thought that everyone should act confidently so as not to disgrace their senior. The sect master explained that he had come in a hurry and had not had time to prepare gifts, but he had something that might please the head of the Shannon sect. Magical energy appeared on the floor and began to take shape. It turned out to be rare spirit beasts, water cloud deer. Once tamed, they could serve as riding animals. Gui knew that the master had spent 6 months of hard work to catch these two beasts, and they were dear to him. She did not expect such a generous gesture, to give them to the elder Meng Fu. The deer looked around and were surprised by the unusually thin aura in this place. The elder did not intend to clarify that the animals would now live here. The master agreed, adding that this was indeed the plan. One of the deer turned away, declaring that he would not even consider staying here obediently just because they had been caught. Better to die than to live in such a place. The master thought the animals were too rude. The deer headed for the exit, noting that if the master wanted to keep them here, he could leave them as dead bodies. Tang pointed out that the animals would hardly dare to cross the threshold of this place. Where did they get the courage to speak so boldly? Inside the Shannon sect, the deer looked around again and asked what this fierce aura was. They heard a voice. Tal Yuan advised them to return immediately. The master was surprised to notice that the sword had spoken. Yang explained that the heavy sword was the transformed Tiwin. Buang apologized, saying he couldn't help himself, and admitted his guilt. The deer were amazed by his appearance and asked why he was there. The master admitted that the misunderstanding was his fault. He had not explained everything to them from the beginning. He suggested that they think again. After a while, the group found themselves on the street. Bon reported that the elder Meng Fu was still resting, and that they could explore the surroundings for now. They approached a stone pillar and saw a large crowd around it. Yang explained that the students who had come for training had already passed the test. Bu Fangyan noted that due to limited resources, only one spiritual dimension pillar could be placed here for now, and she was worried that it might seem frivolous. The master examined the pillar. The very pillar that the 3 first-class sects considered their greatest treasure stood here as an ordinary object. He realized that only the senior Meng Fu had enough power to afford such a thing. The disciples discussed the renewal of the first place. One of them noticed the sect leader and hurried to bow. The master asked what was going on. The stone slab listed the names of the masters: Hidden Sword Cave, Ren Junling, Jinghu Sect. Completion time, 1 hour and 14 minutes. Level 31. Shu Yin Hai, Jinghu Sect. Time, 1 hour and 18 minutes. Level 34. Chang He Hui, Jinghu Sect. Time, 1 hour and 34 minutes. Level 30. The master asked what this meant. Bu Fangyang explained that it was the leaderboard. It was created by Elder Nangong Mo Wan at the request of Elder Meng Fu so that disciples could see their abilities and progress. The master was surprised, remembering that Nangong Mo Wan was the very person who never sought to communicate with those around him, and now he wanted to become an elder. A crowd of people gathered in front of the small building, waiting for their turn. Some wanted to take the test again. The master looked at the board and thought that no matter how strong a person was, there would always be someone who surpassed him. The true essence of the path of cultivation lies in constantly overcoming oneself. Elder Meng Fu strives to convey this idea to all practitioners. He laughed, because the main character was truly worthy of being called an elder. He laughed, recalling that as soon as the competition began, the frequency of visits to the secret room increased dramatically. This annoyed him. The gacha system seemed to deliberately give him nothing useful, even though he had earned a lot of coins, and in the end, he only received tons of herbs and materials. He did not understand why, being essentially the system itself, he was so unlucky. On that day, a master from the Jingzhu sect was supposed to visit him. Guanling reported that the master had only stopped at the door for a moment, remembered some important business, apologized, and then left. Later, the master flew in on a luxurious chair, reminding himself of Yang's words that this was the elder's mansion, and it was better to wait here for a while, allowing the master to prepare. Meanwhile, Meng Fu expressed his anger, which surprised everyone. He had never shouted so loudly before. Yang noted that if something could anger the elder, it must be important. The mentor decided to return later. leaving everything as it was so as not to aggravate the situation. Suddenly, a loud cry for help rang out in the air. A crowd gathered around a trembling young man. His clothes and surroundings gave him away as a member of the insect-like Chu sect. Under the mask, one of the people asked who he was and how he dared to support the Order of the Immortal Union, deceiving all practitioners. It turned out that the recently made fake token belonged to this young man. He wanted to attract the attention of the senior member of the Shenin sect, but did not expect it to cause such a commotion. The masked man said that the 4 grandmasters had promised a reward for his safe return. The elder intervened, releasing several magical waves that knocked the masked man dead. The young man was stunned and did not immediately understand what was happening. The elder explained that the young man had nothing to fear. He was from the Jingzhou sect, which was closely associated with Shenan. Realizing this, the young man agreed to join Shenan. The elder accompanied him to the entrance of the sect and wished him luck. He noted that the young man was skilled enough to forge a token of the Order of the Immortal Union and, with luck, could become a disciple of the sect. The young man realized that he had accidentally gotten involved in the game, and now it was too late to run away. Later, someone noticed that the red-haired young man had created a heaven-class magic weapon on his first try, an outstanding talent. In the Valley of Fire, he must be protected so that no one learns of this child's existence. With further training, he would undoubtedly become a true master of weapons. However, this man was soon killed and left on the floor. Another man noticed that there were many sky-class magical weapons hidden in the Valley of Fire, and decided that he needed to search for them carefully in order to get rich. He ran his sword across the floor, leaving sparks, which frightened Dun, who was hiding under the floor. The guard called the young man, reminding him that the elders and chiefs were already waiting for him in the waiting room. Du realized that once he had only wanted to sell fakes, but now he was involved in dangerous events. A painful memory resurfaced inside him. Once, a man had stabbed him in the arm with a sword, punishing him for selling fake weapons and wanting to teach him a lesson. Jiang Yang met him in the waiting room. She asked if it was true that the head of the Jingu sect himself had sent him. Hearing this, the young man turned even paler. He hastened to confess. He was a swindler who simply wanted to make money, and his pursuers were just angry members of the Chu Yin sect. He had insulted them, run away from them, and accidentally gotten caught up in this farce. He never expected that the head of Jingzhou would personally intervene and send him here. His words caused surprise, but at that moment, Meng Fu himself entered the hall. All the disciples stood up and bowed. The elder approached the young man and asked him directly if he wanted to join Shenumen. The room fell into a heavy silence. The young man felt his hands trembling. The elder's gaze was no less oppressive than the master's aura. He admitted that he would like to, but considered himself too worthless to become a weaponsmith. The elder raised an eyebrow and said that he could do it. Surprise replaced confusion. A description appeared in the system window. Character of Destiny, Shilin Dong. Vitality, 6. Physique, 7. Knowledge of Nature, 9. Luck, only 2. Passive skill, Master Craftsman, rank A. The use of medium and high-level spiritual materials temporarily increases the speed and probability of successful forging. Techniques, Scarlet Flame, Mysterious rank, Blacksmithing rank, A. Hereditary craftsmanship of the Flame Valley, with bonuses to metal and fire materials. Man Feiku remembered that in the game world, this character served as an NPC capable of improving players' weapons. The low chance of success scared most people away, and only the rich dared to take the risk. Shilin Dong charged the same fee even if the magical treasure was destroyed. This led to suspicions that the developers had deliberately lowered the probability of success. Now it became clear. The problem really was the 2 points of luck, but at the same time, the character had a powerful skill that could give weapons impressive effects. Man Feiku noted that Dong's products looked decent, but had no real combat value. After that, the elder returned to the main question and waited for an answer. Shilin Dong tried to find the right words, but was forced to admit that he needed time to think. A heavy silence fell over the room, and the eyes of those present turned to him. Their thoughts returned to one thing. The Shenyang sect had made enemies among both the righteous clans and the demonic ones, and getting caught up in this maelstrom seemed frightening. Man Feiku calmly explained that he was in no hurry. If joining was not yet possible, he would like to ask Dong for help with one task. The surprise made Dong wary. Why did the elder turn to him specifically? In the Zen sect, the master lamented that the trip had not gone as well as he would have liked. In addition, he had not been able to personally express his respect to the elder Man Fu. At that moment, a man entered the hall and called the master Bald Huan. The master looked up and saw the newcomer. It was Hui Wukan, the head of the Jinggang sect. The master noted to himself that both sects belonged to the 3rd rank and even had similar names. For many years, there had been a hidden rivalry between them, which did not cross certain boundaries but was felt by everyone. Hui Wukan asked if the master had heard the latest news. The thought flashed through his mind. Since this man had come himself, nothing good could be expected. Hui Wukan reported that 3 first-class sects were preparing to hold a large-scale competition and invite young disciples from all sects to participate. If any of them were lucky enough to pass the preliminary selection, they would have a chance to test their development by receiving a gift from above. And those who reach the very top will be able to obtain heavenly treasures. The master was surprised and asked if this was true. Hui Wukan confidently replied that, as far as he knew, he had good relations with the 3 great sects. A few days ago, their chief disciple was specifically asked to take the test. The result was 42 points. After these words, Hui Wukan asked if the master understood what this meant. The master frowned and asked what he meant. Hui Wukan explained that even in the 3 great clans, there were very few who could achieve such a result. During the sect's tests, they discussed those who were able to exceed the threshold of 40 points. It was believed that the highest score was 46, and belonged to the heir of one of the 3 great clans, Yushin. However, the master was certain. Gianyang's cultivation level had reached 48. The master's thoughts were interrupted by Hui Wukan, who remarked with dissatisfaction that the master was too surprised by the success of his students, even though the school was still strong. He sarcastically suggested that the master send his disciples to study in other sects, as if forgetting that the great clans avoided the master after his open support for the Shinan sect, and would not allow them to take the test early. After a while, the return of the disciples was announced in the square of the Jingzhou sect. Gianyang ordered the others to rest, while she herself went to the master. Hui Wukan immediately noticed that the master looked distracted. The master was surprised by these words, but immediately assumed that Hui Wukan was simply jealous. Hui Wukan himself did not know how to respond to such jibes, and the master only smiled strangely. Gianyang approached them, greeted the master, and noticed the elder nearby. The elder immediately grumbled that the apprentice had not even bowed properly, and asked what kind of treasure she was clutching to her chest. The girl relayed the words of the elder Mang Fu. Last time he left in a hurry without having time to talk to the master, so now he had sent a special gift. The master asked excitedly if it was really a gift from Mang Fu. When the chest was opened, the master saw the highest black card inside. Hui Wukan immediately sensed the aura of a heavenly treasure emanating from it. Gianyang delivered a message. In the future, the Jingzhou sect would become the main VIP client of the Shenan sect, and all expenses on the card would be free. The master was amazed by such generosity. Although Senior Mang Fu said that the card was just a sign of high status and had no practical power, the master understood perfectly well the true value of the heavenly artifact created by the mysterious master blacksmith. Hui Wukan noticed the inscription in the corner of the card, the same one he had seen on the previous gift from above. The master confirmed that, in addition to the 3 great sects, Shenan also received gifts from above. The first group of disciples had already verified this, and the second group would follow. When Hui Wukan learned that Gianyang had successfully passed the test, and her level was indeed 48, the news hit his pride. The master teased his old friend again, saying that he looked lost with envy. Hui Wukan only grew more sullen, though he tried to keep a straight face. The conversation imperceptibly turned into the usual bickering. Hui Wukan admitted that he would like to meet Mang Fu, and hoped that the master would put in a good word for him. The master just waved it off. Their student knew the elder much better. The old man immediately turned to Gianyang, and immediately suggested that he be called uncle. This enraged the master. He couldn't believe that his friend was improving his language skills, rather than his cultivation. Despite Mang Fu's kindness and the privileges bestowed upon the sect, the master understood that even generous gifts did not negate the need for the Shinan sect to earn a living. He allowed himself a final smirk as he watched the old man struggle before receiving the help he desired.